All right, folks, this is Harris Sultan, your favorite ex-Muslim atheist, and welcome to another episode of my special guests. Because, and I hope a lot of you hated my free, forced book advert. So, I knew it was unfair, but I didn't have any decent promos. So this is one of the promos that one of the guys actually just worked on. So I've asked them to create a few more promos. So give me a feedback if you like this promo or not. And then, I'm still working on it. But moving on, I've got a very special guest with me, John Del Vento. And yes, Western name, white dude. And, as I said last time, I got Deborah in my usual show. But I got her because I'm actually I'm going to this year, or maybe, forever, as long as I keep doing this. I'm gonna try to bring in at least one or two guests a month who were white Westerners, because we see Muslims jump up and down and go, look, that white dude, look, that white woman, even that person converted to Islam. See, Islam must have been the right religion. That's why they converted to Islam. Which we know that, in most cases, there's different circumstances, and obviously we'll speak about it with John. So John is one of those white people who converted to Islam, and I'm sure his conversion to Islam would have served enormously in the hands of Dawah men, and they would have thrown that in our faces, and they would have said, see, look at this idiot. He converted to Islam. So anyway, sorry, I don't mean everyone's an idiot, but anyway, here he is, John Del Vento. How's it going, John?
What an intro! The token white guy, right?
Well, you are. Well, we need a lot more of you white guys, because, like as I said in the intro, it's quite amazing that we know most of the white converts are actually females, and we know why they become Muslims is because they fall in love with a Muslim man, and why that happens more often than falling in love with a Muslim girl, because Muslim men have a little bit more liberty than Muslim women. They can actually go out, venture out, and then if they fall in love with a girl, then oh, now we fall in love, but I can't marry you, honey, unless you convert to Islam. And then they say, okay, all right, I'm madly in love with you, so I'll convert to Satanism as well if I have to. So those white women convert to Islam, and we know that with women. But what's wrong with you, unless you were a woman back in the day?
No, you never know, right? First of all, Kial,
these days you never know. You have a very sexy beard, though.
Oh, you like the beard? My daddy, Mira daddy.
Daddy, yes.
My daddy. So I converted basically, I guess, to maybe more Pakistanism versus Islam. But
Islam, yeah.
Pakistani Islam. It's a beautiful tradition, isn't it? And that's why a lot of time when I do these talks, I'm not the most common voice. The voice of a convert is a very different voice. It's a new type of voice that's coming up. I didn't kind of actively seek to make a channel or do interviews too much, but I chatted with Abdullah Samir a couple months ago because he put a call out for anybody that converted and left, and I had left years ago, and I just hit him up, and it's became a rabbit hole. So it's not the most common story like you'll hear in the Middle East, but it is legitimate Islam, and there is a growing crew of people that have converted, not just white or Gode, things like that, but people that converted to Islam based on the various snake oils that they have. I have degrees. I like to think I'm not crazy, things like that, but it could have been a psychological thing. But for me, it was more of an intellectual pursuit. But for some people, it's psychological. Some people, it's intellectual. Some people, but there's different reasons why people are leaving Islam. So my voice is not too common. I might piss some people off because I'm a little more sympathetic to Islam than a lot of ex-Muslims, things like that, because I enjoyed my time mostly. But it's a different experience, but I don't mind doing these little chats and things like that. But I think it's going to be cool talking to you because you understand the subcontinent vibe. Because I traveled to Pakistan a couple times, and it's got its own thing, But I found it because of a theological pursuit, man. Because in the Quran, in Islam, it's basically designed to reel Christians in. Right, and I was born and raised a Christian, a very strong evangelical Christian, and I was always a curious kid, so always asking about you always ask about the Trinity, the God, and because it's a tough religion if you're like a rationalist. It's a faith-based religion. So I was always asking questions, and Islam purports itself as having all the answers and all the talking points. So it's really good at reeling Christians in. Oh, Jesus is a prophet. Oh, that answers that question. There's only one God. Oh, that answers that. And then you figure out the rest of the bullshit later. They tell you how to wipe yourself and how to put your shoes on and things like that. But to start as a theological tool, like even the Dome of the Rock, just the inscriptions there, it's the religion is almost designed to reel in Christians. So I'm coming at it from a Christian perspective. So I think a lot of the conversions you see is like Christianity to Islam. So I converted because of a theological thing, and I'm always kind of a seeker. I'm always seeking, and I left because of theological reasons as well. I didn't leave because of bitterness or because of something like that. I left because I just was uncomfortable with like some hadith stuff. And yeah, since I did that interview with Abdullah, I've met a lot of cool people like on Twitter and stuff like that, and it's become a huge part of my life. So I'm not like an expert, but I've done my time, and when you convert, you usually learn a lot more about Islam than the born Muslims. So I have a lot of stuff in my head and a lot of books, and it was a fun time. But sometimes I think it was just a phase, like I just some a little bit younger, a little bit crazier, a lot of terrorism going around in America. Maybe I was just trying to be a rebel, something like that. But for me, I enjoyed, because I'm a musician. If you care about what I actually do, I'm a composer. So I fell into a form of Islam that involved music, which was kind of cool. So I was still able to take a few musical things, and I still use some things in my life.
You listen to a lot of qawwalis?
I love qawwali. It's like my favorite thing now. Even today, it's like qawwali, and as a music, it's a beautiful thing. It's really cool, and so at least I got stuff out of it, But yeah, I do have a House of Del Vento. I do have a podcast and a channel. You could check that out. It's not too religiously based, but I'm tackling Hindutva right now, which is a new thing. But
yeah. We'll get to that. So again, so
I love qawwali, but do you like qawwali?
Well, growing up Pakistani, yes, I did force myself to like qawwali. I mean, Nusrat Fateh Ali was someone that I did like, but then as I grew up, I realized that I liked more of his pop qawwali rather than the traditional real qawwali. But then again, there's some other guys like Ataullah Isa Khelvi, etc. So I did listen to some of them, but again, I think it was a phase. I was never the spiritual kind of a guy, as they say, that it lifts your spirit. And I was always that's not to say I don't like music. I mean, I like pop and rock basically, and sometimes like R&B as well. But I enjoy it anyway. I'm not the subject. So I want to talk about you. So you said that for theological reasons you like that, and you were attracted to Islam, and world was changing, terrorism, and we saw a spike of conversions towards Islam, especially in West and in America, when people obviously react to that. It's kind of like a Streisand effect. Well, actually, not really that, but it's kind of thing that when you want to demonize something, no matter how demonic that is, then people somehow have a different reaction to it. For example, when you talk about moon landing, then there's always going to be some people who would say, no, it must be a hoax. There's chemtrails and all that. So people have a different type of a reaction. So we understand that. And obviously there's some legitimate concerns as well, that people would think that when we look at those terrible war footage and say, why do these people have to get these cruise missiles? But you said for theological reasons. I asked the same question. Deborah mentioned the same thing, that she found Islam to be more rational. But then there were people asking, I saw some of the comments, they were like, what did you find rational in it? So when you said theological reason, what were the theological reasons that you thought that don't make sense in Christianity, but they make sense in Islam? You're on mute. And
sorry, I'm doing the mute thing. Yeah, quickly, it's a little early for me, brother. So in between, I'm going to be chugging this black coffee as much as I can.
And I'm drinking my favorite Pepsi Max. By the way, thanks P thanks for your work, Harris. Thank you very much. New fan of House of Del Vento. All the best. Please do check out House of Del Vento, his music, his YouTube channel. It'd be quite awesome. Yes. So what's the theological thing that you found so sexy in Islam?
Yeah. So the big four, so I left, so the reasons why I was kind of disenfranchised by Christianity were the exact reasons that brought me to Islam. The connective tissue are there, and that's how the Quran is designed. That's how most of Muhammad's mission was designed. So for me, number one, I was always very disturbed at the manuscript tradition in the Bible. as everybody will say, the Bible's been changed, the Bible's edited. It's a fact. I mean, the Bible was put together by the hand of man is throughout the Bible. And throughout I would be a 17-year-old. We go to church every Sunday, every Wednesday. Mom would make us go. And my mom's a very faithful Christian to this day. I love her. I bless her. We kind of fought in my 20s and things like that. But now I appreciate the way she raised me. But she used to kind of force me to go to church. And the pastors would do questions and answers. And I would ask him these things. And they would just have no answers. And so one thing, the manuscript tradition of the Quran I found was much stronger, and I still believe that to this day. Whatever the debates happening in other channels, the manuscript tradition of the Quran is very strong. So at least I could rely on the text. So I found a text that to me was more reliable. Like I knew if I was reading a text today that earlier humans would have read something that was a little more similar. When I read the Bible today, I didn't know, like, were Jesus' followers really reading this book? I didn't know. So I had a little more confidence in the Quran. My confidence started to wane at times, but I like looking at manuscripts. So that was one thing, was the manuscript tradition. I thought the Quran was really cool. As a musician, I thought the Qurans, I was able to understand the poetic stuff that all these apologists always rant about. As a musician, I was able to hear a lot of these melodies and a lot of these poems in the Arabic that kind of blew me away. And it's a little hard to describe. Like there's some kind of cool poetic stuff there, and that was always a selling point with Islam as well. The monotheism is a big thing for me. I mean, going from 3 gods to 1, that's always more of a rational thing. And when you read the Quran in English, it's pretty damn adamant about that. They repeat it again and again, the monotheism. And then Jesus being a prophet, for me, just made so much more sense. The idea of the tradition of the prophets from Adam all the way to Muhammad just kind of made more sense, because the Old Testament, when you're a Christian, is so different from the New Testament, and they don't really reconcile it. Like, you go to church, they'll read from the Old Testament. Oh, but what about they read from the New Testament? Like, the New Testament on its own is a really beautiful book, but it's just such a confusing religion. So in that way, Islam seems logical. Now, I was in it for many, many years, and as more illogical things came up, I would store them in the back of my head, but it wasn't a big deal for me. I enjoyed the prayer and things like that. I'm not somebody that, worries too much about that. But in terms of theology, I did find it more rational for those kind of 4 reasons.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that strongest point. And again, when I look at Christianity, I mean, the concept of Trinity sounds so childishly stupid. It really is childishly stupid. Like, it just doesn't make any sense, no matter how much you stretch it, even by religious standards. It just doesn't make any sense. But did you pick up on, and I know that Tawheed is one of the biggest factor in Islam, and one of the major selling points. It kind of picks up all this jumbled up different ideologies and just puts as one solid one. Like, there's only one God, that's it. One God. And that is a very strong point. But did you actually pick up the difference where Quran actually does say that the Holy Spirit, no, what does Quran say? The God, the Son, and the Mother as Trinity. Yeah, so obviously when you were researching, you can't remember every verse and you can't read every verse, even though you think that you read the Quran. And I've read the Quran about 3 times now, and I still find new stuff in there. And I'm like, whoa, what is it? And it just takes you to every single verse. The amount of research you have to do, you have to consult with so many other classical scholars. So what were the theological differences that you realized later on that these are the ones that don't make any sense?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, that's one way to interpret the Quran, but that's not the only way to interpret the Quran. And that's one of the problems why I left Islam, is that way of thinking that you just kind of defaulted to. I just have such a problem with Islam today, because it's that literalist bullshit, and that's how everybody thinks. And as I looked in Islamic history, and I was involved with the kind of those, they call them Sufis, and those Barelvis.
Yeah.
I was involved with, so they will read weaker hadith and different history, so you find different traditions. And there's a tradition of reading the Quran for itself without tafsir, without scholars, and without and that's cool. That's a different thing. I'm not like...
It doesn't make sense, though. But does it make sense, though? Did that ever make sense to you?
Yeah. It still makes perfect sense to me. But this is where I start to piss off a lot of the ex-Muslims and think, did you really leave and things like that? But it does make sense to me.
I didn't mean that. No, but because I even growing with hearing all the background noises about different stories and Prophet Muhammad, and some of the verses when we read them, we're like, oh, that's why we've heard that story about Muhammad, because of this verse. but I'm saying that if you're not raised in that environment, you would not have heard the folk stories with that folklore, as I'd say. But then there's still so many Quranic verses that just don't make any sense. You have to look at the tafsirs. I mean, how do you deal with those verses?
Well, it's really nice because I started with an English translation. So that's before I converted. Part of it was just when you read an English Quran. I should have brought the books down here. The annotated translation by A.J. Draj. When you buy an English Quran, you're usually going to buy one that has notes on the bottom. So I bought an English Quran, and I thought it was a cool read. It's always talking about bring your proof, find a verse like this. Very clear. I thought the way this translation laid it out in English really nicely, and there were tons of annotations. Now, if you've grown up with 15 years of the Bible, you already have tafsir in your head. Let me just finish this thing.
But that's the equivalent. No, but those notes at the bottom, I'm saying that's what. So you still need the support of those little notes.
You don't need it. It helped. It helped understand. And what I like about this translation is that it had Bible verses referring to it as well. So when you grow up with the Bible, you kind of already have a tafsir in your head. So I know that the long version of the Abraham story, of the Noah story, the Moses story, because in the Old Testament the Jews actually wrote it in a way that made sense, and it was long. And when you read the Quran, it's like Abraham, then Mary, then Noah, and it's like whoa. So growing up being a Bible kid, I kind of already had a tafsir in my head. So when I read the Quran, I could kind of skip the Abraham parts because I know the stories. But most of these born Muslims, they don't even know the fucking real story. I don't know if you swear on here, but they don't even know the real story. They have their Israelat, this strange tradition. But you ask them about what actually the Noah story is in the Bible, they don't know it. So for the stories of the Quran, I personally wasn't too confused, and as a Christian, that's what's kind of cool. So, and in early Muslim history, and even Muhammad treated it that way. The Bible and the Quran used to be kind of together, and when you read it like that, it makes a lot more sense. And it's kind of a liberal thing, you don't find this stuff in the Gulf and things like that. You just don't find this kind of bullshit that I'm talking about. But when you know the Bible, a lot of it makes sense. Now, there's also other verses outside of like Bible stuff in the Quran that doesn't make a lot of sense as well. You have the Surah Nisa, all the rules and things like that. But yeah, I mean, it's designed to be a complex book. And even the year after Muhammad died, I mean, people didn't understand what the book meant. They didn't even understand what the Arabic words meant. So it's never meant to be a book that's so cut and dry literal, So it's not the most clear scripture, but for me, I liked that it was always like, it kind of talks to you. It's always asking for proof and things like that. So that, it reeled me in through those reasons, but I left because of the hadith. Like I still kind of, I don't read the Quran, but I look at these manuscript debates and things like that, and I like the history of it, but I'm more like anti-hadith. I think that when I looked at hadith, like in the way I do manuscripts, I'm like, what the hell is this shit? Like, why am I praying like this? Like, why is the Yemeni guy, shoving his foot against my fucking ankle when I'm trying to pray and like yelling at me and things like that? Like why is this like how come when I go to my mehfil we eat a whole feast of biryani at the end, but then when I go down the road at the mosque, everybody looks like they got a stick up their ass, and things like that. So I just got confused at where all this came from. So I left because of hadith. So if we talk more about Quran, I'm probably going to sound more like a Muslim, because I didn't leave because of the Quran. So yeah, we could argue a little bit on that too.
Right. So I always see hadith as something extra, helping material for us to build a case against Islam. But the main problem with Islam, obviously, whether there's a concept of Trinity, or there's a concept of one God or 100 other gods, to me, they're just different levels of bullshit that we have. None of them are provable. None of them have any evidence other than these stories that were told thousands of years ago. So that's number one. Secondly, even in my book, I barely discussed.
Wait a sec. So you just said off right there that there's no like proof, right? So that's so then there's the epistemology. So what the Sufi would say, or the Barelvi, which is the stuff I like, and I still kind of like this as a musician, is we're not designed as, and this would be like the woo-woo kind of stuff. This is the subcontinent kind of, even the little bit of Hinduism that comes in from those medieval days, is what the Sufi would say is that the proof is not something that we're going to be able to comprehend as a human, no matter what. In all faith traditions, that's just part of it, that God's a mystery or whatever, or the deity, the Dharma is a mystery. So the closest thing we can get to proof with like Kawali stuff and Chisti stuff is love. So it's the idea of the love, or the sake, mirasaki. Nusrat Saab was always talking about the wine. So the Sufism is all about love. The closest thing we could connect to God is love, and that's a theory. Is like, as long as we could feel love, that's the proof of God. So the Sufi idea is, if you're smoking
That's
weed,
not proof of God.
well, then it's the epistemology. It's the Sufi,
that's right.
It's not proof. It's the closest thing that we can get to God,
Yeah,
because
so-
love
yeah, so-
feels great. Whether you're having
Yeah.
sex, whether you're smoking weed, whether you're drinking, whether
Right.
you're doing methyl, it's a little bit of a woo-woo way, but it's
It
not
is
a proof
woo-woo.
of God. It's the
But it is
closest
woo-woo.
experience.
Yeah, so I'll leave it
Now,
at that. Yeah,
it's
so I
not
would
a-
leave it at that.
It's not a
Yeah, but I would leave it at
rationalist
that.
answer.
Fair
It's not
enough. So
rationalist
yeah, and that's fine. So that was my number one point against religion. And if we just stick with Quran, forget about the Hadith. Hadith, as I said, is a low hanging fruit. You could just pull out Aisha's age on that, and you're like, man, what do you do? You could pull out the camel urine Hadith, and you're like, dude, what's that? And a flying donkey. These things that Muslims are like, oh man, bro, come on, forget about that. So number one, my biggest case against Islam in my book was, obviously, first of all, no evidence, no objective evidence for God, and every other answer explanation we get is, as you said, is woo-woo answer, and the description that we're given, that description actually fits the description of nothing as well. So forget about that. Come back to me when you have something objective. Okay, now there's other points looking into that as well, and then I can go into that. But let's not go into that now. But the second, the morality in the Quran itself. The morality. So forget about the Hadith and the explanation of that. Cutting off hands and feet, jizya, 4 wives, sex slaves. So some of these arguments, these things come directly from the Quran without having to look into anything else. And then obviously there's bad science in the Quran as well. So how could you be so charitable towards the Quran?
Yeah. So the thing about the God thing is the epistemology, and this is the new this is always the heel of the new atheist, is just saying, come at me with objective proof. And the epistemology is the big, because you could do that. They could flip that against you to say, come at me with the objective proof that we're both alive right now. Come at me with the objective proof that, of each bit of science, of all the way getting all the way back. So it's an argument that gets circular, and I don't think those things have succeeded with the new atheists. But then you have William Lane Craig kind of things that would say there's an ontological argument and things like that. So I found when you get into epistemology, like, give me the proof of God, well, you're never going to have that. Now, you're going to have the character. You're going to have the example of people versus not. And that was the problem with like this Hindu thing, is the example they demonstrated was so disgusting that I don't even care about their religion. Like, the example I see from a Christian friend of mine, that'll prove their religion, or a Mormon guy, that'll prove it. So it's like actions, but the objective proof thing, it'll come down with epistemology. And that's why for me, I'm always really into history and manuscripts and stuff like that, because at least I could see, like, at least I have a book I could rely on, things like that. We're never going to have a God come down, 100 years ago. The objective, reality was, and it's an epistemology. I love science. He did
it for thousands of years. But he did it thousands of years ago, multiple times. It's not coming down and speaking directly with human beings. My point is, these are extraordinary claims, but zero evidence on the other hand. So it's not very wild of us to say that if there is a God who wants to be worshipped, why leave us in these riddles when he can just come down in front of the White House, hold a press conference, and he can say that my name is Allah or Yahweh or Krishna, whatever that is. This is what I wanted you. I give you a discount that most of my message got lost because I chose to send it in a time when there was, not even a pen and paper. That's why most of the stuff got lost. So when you say that there's no argument, they can flip that around as to whether you're alive or not. I don't know whether you're going into the whole simulation argument or not. But Sam Harris,
I didn't even know I was going to get into this, but it's
right.
Playing devil's advocate a little bit, but
no. I know. Look, I mean, it's not at to you. I mean, I'm obviously, we're discussing the arguments that what people do give that. But
yes,
Sam Harris has answered that quite well. The one thing, and he says it with more clarity than anything else, that one thing that we can be certain of is that consciousness is real. We are conscious. So whether you want to say that, okay, this consciousness might be in a simulation or something, okay, I'm willing to go that far. Although highly unlikely, we're still relying on our senses to realize that we are conscious in this physical world that we occupy. But that can never be compared with something like the idea of a God who, by the way, was a very interventionist being. If one, so this is the thing I say with these Sufis and all these other the woo kind of arguments, I say, okay, that might make more sense, that kind of a worldview, with a non-interventionist God, like a kind of a deist God, that, okay, he just created everything and we don't know. Most of our arguments will fall down on a deistic God because, by definition, he doesn't get involved. But these gods of our religions, they get involved. They punish people. They demand certain things from us. They send certain messages. What's the point of sending a message that's not even clear? If I want to communicate with you, I mean, obviously I want to communicate with you in the most efficient way that I can get information across. So anyway, so again, I don't want to get caught up in that part.
But these points can be refuted, bro, because you're just declaring a lot of things. So what you are is you're being a theologian right now, and you're trying to make a theological argument of why God doesn't fit this thing. So and that's the thing with the new atheists, is they have to set up an epistem, and I'm just using that as a generalization because I do kind of like speaking in generalizations. I think it helps. You have to set up an epistem. You have to set up a straw man. You have to set up so you made the theological declaration that how come God doesn't act how I want to act. Now I could also say, okay, how come God didn't make a world that was evil only? How come God didn't make a world that was good only? How come God didn't make a world that was male? So we could sit in the coffee shop but to just be an atheist to say that it's more likely to do this, I'm glad you mentioned the simulation thing because that was going to be my comeback. You could also believe the simulation theory. The biggest proponent of the simulation theory says that the idea that a simulation theory exists in our head right now as a concept means that it will exist one day, which means that the simulation theory has more likely chance of being real than God. And that's a cool argument. I understand it. It's really cool. And science is getting better at explaining those deep, deep things. In my lifetime, how science has come, it's crazy. We're starting to figure out consciousness, like you said. We're starting to even figure out, like, I actually put a down payment on a cryo chamber, which is kind of, we can get it. So there's things like that, like afterlife stuff. I like where science is going. But it still requires an epistemology. And if you could do this stuff for like 2 hours. So I found with religious people, when I attack their text or their character, it's great. But even your arguments tend to be theological, and you're declaring things. And the Sufi God and the legalistic God is two totally different things. Rumi, the great poet, said, we take the meat from all religions and we leave the bones. And that's what I like about the subcontinent poets and the Qawwalis and stuff, is they took... It was more of a commons man Islam, as they took bits from Hinduism. The Sufis and I hate that word Sufi because it's just a stupid word that somebody made up. But they take bits from like every religion and go like direct to the source. They don't really worry about the text. They'll take a little bit here, a little. But the core Islam, which is what the Salafis practice now, which is the Islam of the caliphs, the Islams of the rules. The religion of the rules are what pisses people off. They get really bitter. Oh, all these rules, but that's a totally... So what you just said is very easy for an atheist to say in like 45 seconds. But there's a lot of points in there that require... It would be like me coming in and saying, all right, why is this grass green right now instead of blue? How come I'm breathing in oxygen instead of carbon monoxide? So that's why I personally... I'm not an atheist, that's the thing, because I'm not convinced yet. I'm just not convinced, because to say there is no proof... That's not. Now, I'm also not convinced that there's a God. I'm not a deist. The Sufi thing is just that inner love. Is the more I can experience love in my life is the proof that I can get, and that's this Jesus thing. So, and just as a character thing, I think atheists have an issue. I'm not making a moral judgment. It's just that if they're going to make such a strong claim against something, then they're going to have to also make a strong claim for something. So they just kind of get stuck in this zone. And that's why I think, the new generation is not only becoming more like the surveys about blasphemy laws with the younger generation is going opposite. I feel like there's not a lot of atheism going on right now, but there's a lot of spirituality. People are still clinging on to the woo-woo. And that's just my opinions on this kind of stuff. None of that. I'm not giving a fatwa or anything. But there's a whole school of Islam that says this stuff, and it's a lot cooler and not nicer. You're not gonna have a lot of terrorists and shit from this kind of Islam, and it used to be really big, but it's just been taken over by the Salafi, Wahhabi.
Yeah, but my problem is not necessarily the dangerous effects of Islam. My problem would still remain the objective claims that Islam and any other religion holds. So whether it's dangerous or not, it still is a claim that is important for us as human species to try to drill down to. I'm really sorry.
Like gravity. Well, it's like gravity, It's like, but it doesn't matter. I mean, what does it matter if your neighbor believes in an irrational God? I mean, what does it matter? I mean, that's the whole thing. Is like, why do atheists care so much?
Yeah,
but if people are trying to convert you, or if they're changing how they hurt people because of their religion, I mean, that's a whole set. But what is the deal with?
No, but that's a bad argument, because as I always say, and again, like a lot of Hindus have been saying that, okay, I made a story about Akshay Kumar. I made a video about him because he said he drinks cow urine every day, and a lot of people say, well, he's drinking it. What's it to you? So let him do. But I have a very strong claim on that, and I would like someone to, if there is a rational epistemological argument, refutation against it, that we can believe in things, irrational things that may have harmless consequences, but once we have that, it opens up the avenue for harmful consequences. But for example, Muhammad's flying donkey is a totally benign, harmless belief, and believing in that is harmless. It doesn't hurt anyone that, if I wake up every day and I believe there's a flying donkey who came 1400 years ago and took our dearly beloved prophet up in heaven. But what else does it open to? It does open you up to believing that there is a heaven. It does open you up to believing that, there's a way for you to get into heaven. It does open you up for there's a way that even if you have sinned in the past, you can blow yourself up and you can be a martyr and you can go to heaven. So these Hindu things, for example, let's just pick the example of cow urine drinking. He's doing it on his own. If it's harmful, it's doing it to himself. But hang on, is that really harmless? Because he might believe that, okay, it might give you some medicinal qualities or whatnot, but then he's going to influence other people because he's an influential Bollywood celebrity. He's going to influence other people who might end up doing that. Someone might have a very harsh reaction to it, and it could be bad. But again, this is why we draw a line at objectivity.
Who cares, man? I mean, if you're an atheist, I mean, who cares? I mean, you keep making these you keep making objective claims. Like, so the thing is it easier to attack that on science? Attack it on science. Say it's bad for your health. Like, if you're going to say you shouldn't do that, but then you don't want a religious person, so you're just acting like exactly what you're, and that's the whole new atheist thing, is you just keep making these moral claims, and then the religious person has to come back and fit.
No.
So I mean, drinking piss is wrong because of XYZ, but also, who cares? It really is an argument, and you made a slippery slope that says if you believe in the Barak, then you believe in heaven and hell. But that's not always. You keep setting up these
I said no.
things,
No, I said something else. No, I said if you believe in irrational things, then you open yourself in believing in other irrational things. Not necessarily.
You declare that. It's a theorem. But there are points in between there that are not always.
So tell me when people do believe in irrational things, and then they would not believe in other irrational things. Is there a way for us to determine that? When people believe in irrational things, they open and we have tons of examples in subcontinent as well. But that people believe in Nazar Lag Jana, evil eye. People believe
music
in
is
black
irrational.
magic.
I mean, music is irrational.
No,
music
I
is
don't think
illogical.
so.
Music doesn't make sense.
No, it does make sense in the sense that there is a certain vibrations that somehow have a physical impact or a psychological impact on us. Why do we like a beat? Why do we like a beat that just goes down my backbone? I mean, why does it do? I mean, it's just sound. Some people like the sound of their own voices.
It has to come from that magical spot. So that it's not all just music. Is not all just math.
But no. But it is rational because there are softwares that actually AI people can work out which song is going to work out better, which song is going to be more popular among a certain age bracket or not. So there has to be mathematics. There has to be something rational in that AI can.
But to create it, to analyze it is rational, but to create it is
Yeah,
irrational.
well,
For a
yeah,
composer or an
no, but it's not
artist to create something, it's an irrational. It takes the spark. So
there
to
is an
say that
argument.
it's irrational, the atheist is trying to skip 4 steps by saying this is irrational, but the atheist has to back up a few steps and talk
No, but
about the
that's got
irrationality
the
of their
gaps.
own life.
Yeah, but it's the gaps theory. Is the gaps problem that we know that there is
It's
AI is
something of
not
the
there yet.
gaps. It's something of
Yeah,
the gaps. It
yeah,
doesn't.
yeah.
That's the
But
atheist
AI,
again of
yeah,
saying it's God of
no,
the
but
gaps.
AI,
It's something of the gaps.
but AI is not there yet. So AI will. I don't know. I've read up quite a lot on that, and there's people say that these traditionally creative jobs as well, they might be gone to AI as well. AI would be able to produce better music.
They've been saying that
Well,
for
yeah,
years.
I don't know. Maybe you're a musician, so
Well,
maybe
that's a
there's a bit of
prophecy,
advice
right?
there.
So the scientist is making a prophecy right there.
No, it's a
And my
prediction.
whole life,
It's a prediction. It's a
my whole
prediction.
life, I've had climate. It's the climate because I'm more of a conservative guy. So I've been listening to the liberals tell me about climate change. And you actually, Australia. Do you remember when they were talking about the ozone layer years, like 20-something years ago? Like
There was a problem.
There was, and now there is. But there were doomsday.
Yeah, because we worked on
predictions.
it. Because we worked on it. Because we banned the certain chemicals, and within 10 years we started seeing the positive impact of that. So we took an action. If there was a prediction that hole in ozone is going to get bigger and bigger. So there
were also many wrong predictions in that. There were many wrong. I mean, California and Florida were supposed to be falling off in the year 2001. So it's the idea of science is
Florida
a beautiful,
is going down. But
science is a beautiful religion based on rationality, based on facts, based on observable evidence, and that's great. History is a beautiful religion that's based on historical method. And you can see, I mean, spirituality is it's this weird thing that us humans have, and it's never gonna. I mean, we had 10 years in this new atheist shit sold with a lot of people, but
it makes sense.
It makes sense if you have a certain epistemology, but it doesn't fulfill the human. And this is just a declaration that human desire for the other can be solved with science, because science is such a beautiful thing. There's so many mysteries. A black hole itself is so much cooler than any of these stupid religious books, but it's like there's still a wonder. And if you just stick yourself in that epistemology of having to explain everything with rationality, it's cool, but I think you lose that extra thing, you lose that.
So I want to go back onto it. So see again. So
yeah, this is fun. Yeah, I didn't think we were going to talk about this.
Yeah, I know. This is definitely better. If you disagree,
I'm not watching the chat at all, but I hope folks are doing all right. Yeah.
No, that's okay. No, I think you're doing all right.
But this is how the Harvard Muslims would argue. Like all the stuff I'm saying, if you have like a PhD from like Harvard Islamic Studies, the stuff I'm saying, they say it on steroids, and it sounds really good in an argument. Like the way it's such a woo-woo, but it's woo-woo.
But none of them sounding good. But none of it sounding.
No,
good
I'm saying it doesn't make sense, but it sounds good, and that's how how they're getting young kids to not become atheists, because it sounds fluffy.
Yeah, we know that. This is why you need new age atheists to keep people away, and so we can keep them away from this religious bullshit. So I don't see. This is something that I'm really passionate about, and I want to go back to it. But again, I think that we'll just go back in a black hole and we'll never come out. And then we'll be spaghettified. We'll be pulled. This 4 will become 2, and 2 will become 1. 1 will become half.
What do you think of the double slit experiment? Then have you seen the double slit experiment?
Yeah.
All those things. So yeah, these are.
I don't fully understand that, but I also look at what physicists say about it.
Well, you seem to act like you fully understand the concept of every god that every religion has ever believed, and that's that very. That's that.
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I think confusing complexities of. See, this is why I said I'm always open. I would always be open to believing, not believing, to being positive towards the idea that there is a God who doesn't interfere. Because when you tell me a God, so otherwise there's a God of irrelevance. So there are 2 types of gods left. One, there's a God that is religious God. It just doesn't make any sense. As you said that I'm declaring something, then why doesn't he God do that? And then you compare that with I can say that why the grass is not green and not why the grass is green and not blue. I don't think the analogy works, because I'm saying that I'm expecting something that is not that is not exceptional. I'm not demanding something exceptional, something unusual. By the methods of the same gods that we have heard of, they've done that in the past. So if there is a planet, if on planet somewhere the grass does grow blue, then then you'd be like, you could ask why the grass is not blue here, why grass is green here. So then we can look into it scientifically, and we can explain that why, because of whatever got to do with sunlight or not, or what kind of mixtures in the soil. But I'm asking what has already happened. There's precedence for it. God did used to make appearance. God did the burning bush, and God did used to speak with Muhammad through Gabriel, and he spoke with with Moses directly.
So you're being a theologian again, man. You're being a theologian.
No. This is not. No, this is not.
You're going off the books. It's
all
over the place. And now we're in the books. So how do we know that God has appeared in?
No.
I think it's very obvious that God is not.
I think you missed my point. No, I think you missed my point. I am saying there are two types of gods that are left. There's one that's interventionist God, that's God of religion, and let's just stick to Abrahamic God. So where am I going to get the information of this Abrahamic God from? From the theology. So I am getting that from that. So right now, forget about the other God. I'll come to the other God. But I'm saying that is not exceptional that I'm demanding. I'm demanding something that already exists. The God has done that in the past. It's fair for us to ask, why doesn't he do it today? Okay. So, and then, you have timescale problems, you have complexity of life problem, you have the vastness of universe problem, all of those things, they just don't sit well. So that's problematic. Okay. It doesn't disprove it, but it definitely weakens that argument of that God. Okay, now come to the other God. The other God is irrelevant God. If he's non-interventionist, then he doesn't want anything. So whether you believe in him or you don't believe in him, it's just irrelevant. It just doesn't make any difference. Because for him to make a difference, he would have to be involved in our position, in our lives. But he's not getting involved. So it's God of irrelevance. So if you want to believe in that God, go for it. That's why I always say I have no problem with that. And that God is probably more likely to exist, but without evidence, we have a policy, we can't believe in it.
Yeah, I love the thing about the atheist is the confidence. It was just saying that there's only these two options and things like. So there's just such a.
Give me a third option.
Yeah, no, there's a mistaken thing is that if you. And that's the problem that's why I left Islam is I could tell that you were part of the and that's when I talk with Abdullah and he gets kind of rabid like you are and stuff. I could tell that you guys are from that Salafi thing because you have that. I could tell because you have that thing.
Salafis are rational. Salafis are rational.
No, that's the thing. See, I could tell. That's the thing is they're not rational. Is they want everything to make that perfect sense, and that's good. That's what we want as humans. Is they want everything to make that perfect sense. So to even ask the question, like, and this is what the rational, like when Islam had these empires, it's when the rationalists were in charge and stuff like that because they were able to kind of loosen up a little bit. That golden age was when the rationalists were selling wine on the street and things like that. So because the strict belief like that, whether it's atheism, Salafism, all these kind of things, it's like. Even asking the question of why did God, appear in the books? Well, if you believe in the books in the books like that, then yeah, you would believe that. But the Sufi doesn't necessarily believe in all those books. That's the thing. The Sufi just connects to the love.
He believes in the Quran.
So that, well, yeah, as a what though? As a literal, it doesn't have to be a literal thing. You could even, all these arguments, you could even dismiss them by saying the context of the time. So it's just that general, and that's why the Sufi would also read the Bible. They would also smoke a little weed, things like that. So if you read it literally, that's fine. But I think it's obvious to any common person, based on the evil in the world, based on the suffering, that God does not intervene. I mean, I think that's just a basic thing. Now, I just declared that. That's fine. Now, a couple minutes ago, you just declared that how come God did this, but God did this. Now, that's fine. And then we're at a rock and a hard place. And then William Lane Craig would say that I forget that whatever the isms he used, that the fact that the concept of a God exists as an idea means that a God has to exist. It's like that's a simulation theory. So is that the ontological one?
That was debunked.
So that's why I never got interested in this stuff because the hippie can just sit there like this, and I know it's frustrating. But rationalism is the way to go if you're trying to like critique, serious. Because I'm a very liberal. Like most Muslims will fall for these rational things, but I'm saying it's not the be all end, because even what you could say in 30 seconds is just, you could declare and expect so many things from something that is so beyond us. And the confidence is nice, but I just don't, that's why I'm not personally an atheist, because, I just don't have that confidence.
Look, fair enough. That's fine, as I said, but So can we? I mean, surely you can make a position on whether you believe in a God of religions or you believe in some force out there that is responsible for either the creator of creating the universe or even running the day-to-day activities of the universe.
Yeah, and I think that's what it is that the whole concept of the man upstairs or the God, daddy God with the beard. I mean, yeah, that's an Abraham. I love that term Abrahamic they use now, the Hindu thing. Like, so that's an Abrahamic concept. So I probably am more, people ask me for an ism. I'm probably more of a panentheist. That's the ism that I found that's pretty cool. Not pantheism. It's like a panentheist. It just believes in like, this German guy in the 19th century came up with it. It's the idea. It's like, it's not even deism. It just believes that there is something, a force there, and it could be gravity, it could be whatever is inside an atom. There's just some force that connects, like something like that.
But it's conscious, so it thinks about it.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing like that. I don't know. I watch a lot of Joe Rogan, and he talks about stuff like that. As like he'll get into rants about like how birds, follow the magnetic pull of the earth, when they go in these formations and things like that. So there's a force that's connecting life together. And like, if somebody want to think it's a God, but again, the Sufi, this whole conversation that like the Sufi wouldn't even argue this thing. Like Bulleh Shah in Punjab would just sit and eat roti this whole conversation, because the whole idea is all the Sufi wants to do is experience love. Is obviously this whole conversation for 45 minutes proves that we have no concept of this. Like, it's fun to debate, but our brains, it's just there's no point. So the Sufi is just the closest thing we could find that feels like the divine in this is love. Love is awesome. Love feels great. So he would just be sitting and let's just try to experience love, and if you have love, then you're probably fine. But if you want to debate the existence of God, and Bulleh Shah used to make fun of the rulers all the time. Yeah, they debate their hadiths and they debate this, but if you just, and it's a tradition. It's just, that's their tradition. Now, if you ask them, why is this true? What is love? All this kind of stuff, it's fine. But as a musician, I'm kind of privy to those more artsy woo-woo things. I'm just, that's just kind of maybe the way I grew up and things. But I like history. I like kind of abstract thinking. But I like talking with science people and things like that, can kind of, and rationalists and atheists and things like that, because it's really the proper way to experience the world. If you had people ruling countries that were thinking like I was, like it would be a mess. Because I like the abstract thinking. I think there's a place for it, and that's where I think the new atheists might need to get something to be able to explain that abstract thinking. And panentheism is a way. Is like there's something there. I mean, the fine-tuning argument, I think, is a decent argument in terms of just because the atheist is always asking the theist to do all the work. And I understand the teapot argument, like the burden of proof is on us. But, if the atheist spent more time explaining the beauties of the magnetic fields and the complexities of life and evolution, I think that would be, and that's what Dawkins is about to die, and his whole life vision is not even being fulfilled. I mean, he's been trying for years to get people to teach science and make it as wonderful as religion. But all people are taking from his work is they're making it negative, and like it's just so negative.
How's that negative? I mean, what Dawkins has achieved,
just criticizing other people's religions and beating humans up for believing things that they've believed for tens of thousands of years.
Yes,
that it pisses people off. Yeah.
Yeah. So what? I mean, when all these other religions were built on pissing off other religions previously, so that's just the way it is. That's how society's evolved. That's how human civilization has been growing, and.
But religion offered something. Religion offered that something that made it succeed.
Something else will offer.
That's what Dawkins is trying to say. Dawkins wrote a children's book.
No, but that is happening. We are more scientifically literate now than we have ever been. Absolutely. We are making more money. We have a better standard of living than ever before. So I don't know how Dawkins has actually failed. And I think I remember Dawkins' interview, and when I do get to meet him, I hope I do. But when I do get to meet him, and I remember his interview, because that guy obviously turned my life, and now I see so many people when there was a poll done. It was just a group poll, but there's so many people who listen to me, and then they say that, I've changed my mind. I don't know, I lost my
I
count.
saw that. You are by far don't be humble. You are by far the number one ex-Muslim for influencing people.
Dude,
Good for you.
Dude, that was freaking 22. You know?
And I see
22.
why. I see why. You're very
No, but listen to my point, please. My point was
let me mute.
that so my ideas, and I always say there's no humility in that, but I learned something from him, and I put that in a book. I obviously put a little bit of my own flavor and then subcontinent flavor, and I said I'm selling it to Pakistani crowd in Urdu language, and people are like, oh, hang on, because these are the people who are still stuck in that. There's Chandya Tare, these stars and moon, who made it? Someone must have been. So these guys are 200 years behind in their arguments, and now they're being thrown with the 21st century atheistic argument. They're like, whoa, how do we handle that? They're losing their faith, right? So now what they do, they obviously want to understand, okay, so who was the first human being? So they understand evolution. So we're not only just seeing people becoming atheists, we're actually seeing people becoming more and more educated in science, being literate in science. But I remember Dawkins saying sometime in 2006 or 7 in an interview, he said, somebody asked him, are you hopeful about the future? And he said, yeah, I'm very hopeful in the West. And at that time, atheism was like this in all European and American Canada, etc. But he said, but I'm not so sure about the Muslim world. And he said that at that time. But look, every survey we look at, some countries like I think it was Libya, Tunisia, that has a percentage that have a bigger percentage of atheists than in Poland, Poland is a lost cause anyway. But in some Western countries, like I think Tunisia's got something like 35%, Australia has 32%, or 31%. So this is amazing. All of that has happened in the last 20 years. So I would want to ask him, hey Dawkins, look at that. But a lot of these people have been influenced by Dawkins themselves. There have been 2 million illegal online downloads in Arabic in Saudi Arabia of Dawkins' book. So it might look very antagonistic, and I do get that. It might look very antagonistic that, okay, we're just shitting on religion, we're shitting on other people's beliefs. But unfortunately, that has always been like that. We would never have heard of theory of evolution if Darwin didn't think about shitting on the existing ideas of the time and said, what, screw you. So I'm sorry, I think that's just the way it is.
No, but he offered something else. Dawkins is totally different from Christopher Hitchens. So you need to add one more point, is that what Dawkins was so successful and why people are hungry for his work is when I listen to him explain evolution, it's like a Dawa guy. I mean, the way he it's a mystical, it's a beautiful thing. So he offered something else. He offered the beauty of the science. He fulfilled that innate, we're chimps, man. We're apes. He fulfilled that candy that we need. And a lot of, when I say new atheists, I'm thinking of that Christopher Hitchens, of that, God is not great. And yeah, there's plenty of time for that. But Dawkins is the one that has offered, and he's come at it from an education perspective. Because one of the things I remember from middle school, the only thing I remember from middle school was like messing around with girls and science class. So two things I remember from science class is when they showed the birth of the baby movie. That was disturbing. And then the second thing was when the teacher yelled at all the creationists, and it offended me, and it was rude, and it became a Board of Ed issue, and it was really bullshit. She said, today we're going to learn evolution, kids. And I know, it was a real Christian town, like working class town, Italians, Irish, a bunch of Catholics and stuff like that. So, and she, Miss Kozlak, I remember, I don't know if she's dead or whatever, but and the fact that I remember this is a big deal. And it's this atheist kind of piss-offery, and it used to trickle down into the schools. And she said, we're going to learn fact today. If you have a belief, that's a belief. If you have a religion, that's a belief. We're going to learn fact today. And I understand, but there's no point to say that. There's just no, that's like the Dawa guy saying, hey, we have Islam and your religion is full of shit. You could say, so Dawkins, the God delusion is half beating up God, but it's also half saying, hey, isn't this explanation better? And that's why I think Dawkins was always the one. And another one that doesn't get a lot of credit is Michael Shermer. I don't know if you read any of him as like the new atheist. He's cool because he's got that aloofness. He talks about like physical things and the vegetarian. He's extremely anti. Dude, Skeptic magazine is awesome because I'm a subscriber to Skeptic, but he's friends with Deepak Chopra though. That's the thing. He's anti what Deepak Chopra says.
You know how it started though. Yeah, they started on a very bad. Yeah.
But also the Hitchens approach worked because who's the number one ex-Muslim channel right now? It's that apostate prophet guy, right? And I found that people think I found actually Deborah, which you talked to, she finds his videos very therapeutic in like a psychological way because she was so beat down by Islam that the way Christopher Hitchens would jab at religions is very therapeutic. And sometimes the way I think of religion, which is just woo 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 woo, it doesn't really help. It's just like there's no point. So that's why I don't have a channel to talk about it. It's just my personal view and I enjoy as a guest. But I think what you're doing is the effective way. You have to come with a knife, especially with Islam, with the stubborn Dawa boys and stuff. You have to come with a knife, and you're very eloquent with it. I'm not trying to butter you up, but I love that comment. They're saying you're more Gode than I am.
It's because of the light, and my light is normal, but it's this camera. I've actually ordered a new camera, a $400 camera, because I this, man. Yeah, I know. So it better make me look really pretty, that $400 camera, because I ordered this one, and this one is like, even the background, you can see it's very grainy. I'm like, why? I mean, it says it's 1080p, but obviously it's shit quality, and it just makes my skin even yellow. I don't know what that is, but. So guys, I'm not trying to be... It's
a lot, man. I just started the YouTube thing. I knew it was a lot, but I didn't know it was this involved. You guys do good work, yeah.
No, but I got actually, I overcompensated. I overcorrected it because this camera was like $70, 1080p. I'm like, yeah, all right, that's cheap. But then I got this, so I thought, oh no, I better invest something decent. So I went the other extreme. I think it's Ultra HD. It's not 4K. I think it's 2K. I think that's what Ultra HD is. And it's I think it's still a what's the Logitech? I think it's some sort of a Logitech. But apparently it's $400. So I don't know. It had good reviews, so I hope it's worth it. But if it makes me look ugly, then I'm going to throw it. I just wanted to someone saying JB Hi-Fi. Now, well, JB Hi-Fi, we're in a lockdown, bro. It's just horrible. Okay, so let's move on. Oh, sorry. Do you want to say something?
No, I was giving it a high five. No.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
okay.
Move on. Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah. So we can get caught up in that. How much time? How are we doing for time? Are we doing good for time?
Dude, I'm good, man. Yeah.
Yeah. It's early morning for you, right?
It's pretty early, so I'm waking up as the stream goes. Right. So, yeah, this is the earliest I've woken up in a long time.
Right. So you're usually that good when you're half asleep. Damn. Well, what are you gonna eat me alive when you're fully awake?
Well, I mentioned a certain substance that the Sufis like to consume sometimes. It does help the brain activate sometimes, if you know what I mean. Musicians like to use it sometimes for the creative juices. So sometimes in the morning it is a great thing to indulge in for stream. So
I'll only do that in Amsterdam. We got 300 people watching. All right,
shit, do we? Oh,
yeah, we got 300 people watching. I think it hit 350 at some point. Okay, so. Say so. So, this is very interesting about you, that you do understand subcontinental art. Say something in Urdu.
Mera naam Yahya hai.
Yeah. That was your Muslim name.
Yeah, Yahya. Yeah, Gigi. Yeah, John. But it was Yahya. I used to be much better, but I think I started with Ki Hal Hai, but the stream was
Had it started. Yeah, Kya Hal Hai. Yeah, right.
Yeah, Punjabi is Ki Hal Hai.
Yeah, huh? Punjabi's Ki Hal Hai.
Yeah, because I hung out with mostly Punjabis, so I got involved. It was mostly Punjabi mosque. I mean, it's a cultural religion, isn't it? I mean, in a couple towns over, they had a Bosnian mosque, things like that, and even a couple streets over was like the Wahhabi mosque. So that's how it is in my area.
So okay, so we heard so far theology attracted you, and then same thing repelled you. But what attracted you to Pakistan? I made a joke somewhere when I'm trying to bag someone in Pakistan. When they try to come at me, come here, bro. Who are you, bro? And I just make a joke about some tiniest, most unheard of town, and I pull out. I said, go and go to Chichawatni or something like that.
Chichawatni.
Exactly. That's what you said. You freaking said you've been to Chichawatni, and I was like, what? This guy's been to Chichawatni? I mean, most Pakistanis don't even know what Chichawatni is. So tell me a little bit about your adventures in Pakistan. You were obviously getting high in Pakistan. So how long did you stay in Pakistan, and why Pakistan out of all the other Muslim countries?
Oh, it's the best country on planet Earth, man. No, it's Pakistan, bahut acha hai. Kapre, bahut ache, khana. I mean, everything. It's been a while, man. I didn't expect, but it's great, But if you go there as a Gora, you're going to be treated like a king. I mean, that's the thing. But if you go there as a guest, you're gonna it's a it's a 3-layer thing. If you go there as a Gora, you're gonna be treated like a king. If you go there as a guest in any gender, you're gonna be treated very well. If you go there as a man, you're gonna be treated very well. So I'm going from and now I've also went as a Muslim. To get my visa, I had
And
to
a
literally
convert.
as
Muslim
a convert.
convert.
So I had to
Right.
get a certificate. I had to have my imam print a shahada certificate proving that I was a Muslim. Like, it was the most crazy visa process ever. They didn't want to give me the visa the first time,
What?
actually.
Why?
So I had to go to the embassy in New York, and I walked into the ambassador's office. I said, "Kaise ho?" And that's how I got the visa, because he didn't want to give me the visa. So that was my first Islamic Republic of Pakistan visa, and it was a 2-week visa. So that was the toughest one to get. And then the next one I got was the 6 months visa, because I started speaking a lot more Punjabi and stuff. So there's a lot of corruption and stuff. And the Shahada certificate was very odd. The imam had to say, yes, this person converted here. He attends our mosque regularly. He's a namazi. I had to get an invitation stamped by the local magistrate from Pakistan. So it was difficult to go there. So I liked that. You know, I've tried to get into North Korea before. So I think Italians. I think I'm a crazy
There's more to
traveler.
you. But,
Huh?
well, why not? There's so many. They're like 200 and I don't know, 190 other countries. You wanted to go to South Korea.
I'm weird. I think Italians are natural travelers, man. The Marco Polo thing, Christopher
Right.
Columbus thing. I don't know. I'm a curious kid. I grew up in Northeast U.S., man. So like my whole life, it was like it was 80s, 90s, a big immigrant rush. So my neighborhood was like Puerto Rican, Dominican, Italian, French. Chinese. I mean, so I've always got interested in cultures. And when I joined them, I mean, Pakistan, it seemed like such a cool. I mean, everybody was laughing, everybody was eating. All that, it was free food. All that, I gained a lot of weight converted to Islam. I mean, after conversion, biryani is served. I mean, it was great. So I mean, everybody see the women look बहुत सोने, you know, so the women were beautiful. I'm thinking, all right, let me get myself a Paki wife, you know. So did I use that word? Let me get myself a Pakistani wife. She'll
Paki
serve,
wife is fine.
you know, she'll
It's a
serve
slur-
me food.
It's a slur in England, but it's okay. We like to call Paki. That's fine.
But the music
so-
got to me, man. The music is what did, because
who was
the
Who was
Qawwali.
your favorite? Who was? Oh, sorry. Was it just Qawwali, or you actually got into Pakistani pop music as well?
I even as a Western musician, I'm not really into pop. I like classical, like Mozart and Bach. I'm weird. I like jazz, so I always like instrumental music. I'm never into pop. I don't listen to top 40 too much. So I like the traditional music of every culture. So I go down a rabbit hole of like traditional Hawaiian music. And what was interesting about me is when I studied the Hindustani music, it was 200 years older than Western classical music, which was cool for me.
Right.
So
lot
Qawwalis have been
of things-
around for a long time.
As you know, Hindus will tell you pretty much everything started there.
Airplanes, plastic surgery, everything. Yeah.
MRI machines, internet, and music.
my God.
And it's such a shame that, you know, because they go in this overdrive, and that just makes everyone think that, okay, maybe that's a lie too. But when a lot of great things did actually start in India as one of the continuous oldest civilizations. But you know, so you never heard of Janoon? You never, you know, being a Gora guy, you know, you could have hung out with the big boys.
Oh, I did. No, I hung out with when I was in Jasmine. I shouldn't have said that. When I was in the village, I hung out with mostly Juts. When I was in KPK, I hung out with the Yusuf Zays, because that's, you know, all the upper class
Yusuf,
folks.
yeah.
Yusuf's the fan. I know all the casts and stuff like that. So yeah,
Right.
and the first thing I did when I go to any city is to give the police officer $300, because that's the number one thing.
That's $3. That's
Yeah.
$3.
Yeah. No, 300 American. So what is it? 30,000.
What?
30,000 PKR. Say right. So I mean, I had to go there with it. So you have to flash it. I played into that. Believe me, I'm not like that. I come from a very middle class background, lower class. So and I went there to kind of meet a girl too. So even learning about the marriage and the cost, I'm like, what the fuck is this bullshit? So I'm not an atheist, by the way. That's the guy says I'm.
I didn't want to interrupt you, dude. Aren't you listening? He's not an atheist. He's a panentheist.
So that's the
I'm
thing.
gonna have to Google that. I'm gonna have to Google that after that.
I have some pictures too, if you want to see. I could show you from Pakistan, but
Yeah, if you could, that'd be awesome. I think because a lot of my audience are Pakistani and Indian, they would love to see it.
well, 'cause I stayed in the village, but I also spent time in Lahore and in the northern
That's
areas. And
my hometown. Which part in Lahore did you go to?
what's the model town?
Model
Couple
Town,
of them,
yeah.
and then there's a gated community. It's like military zone, or what's it called?
Defense. That's called
Defense. Yeah, Defense Legion, and then
That's the
Food
highest.
Street.
Yeah, Food Street is pretty cool. Yeah, that's in
That's
Androon,
interesting.
Lahore. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, because I use StreamYard too for this stream. It's a great software to engage with people and stuff. But yeah, I mean it's cool, and I mean so that the mosque culture is really cool because it reminded me of Christianity. When I grew up in the Christian church, there's a lot of food, there's a lot of community. Because and that's a lot of the convert, like the loner white guys kind of thing, and that's how I'm not really much of a loner, but I kind of am as a musician. So when religion gives people that community, and that's part of the snake and packet. It felt so cool, but there was also a lot of things that concerned me, a lot of like racism, a lot of drama, a lot of the whole Fair and Lovely thing. I still don't really understand. There's a lot of color consciousness there.
Yeah.
So I had to.
It's an entire subcontinent, and this is why some people are commenting on my camera as well, because they might think that I'm putting the extra light on myself as well to look good. Usman Nofal, it's not pantheist; it's a pan and theist.
It's a different thing.
There's a difference. So there's a difference. So that's why I said I'm going to look it up. Come on, man. I mean, of course, I would know at least.
2017, and you could.
So you got to share screen with me, so that would become available for me. So potato fries, $5 super chat. Thank you very much. So Jono, mate, there is a Pakistani dude offering 1 million rupees for converting to Islam. Just saying, there's actually a packy dude. So maybe you can recover some of the money. That's about 10 grand that you spent in Pakistan.
No, thank you. I did my thing. It's an interesting way of life, but it's not for me, folks. Not for me.
So first time 2 months, second time 6 months, and was that it?
For just chilling in Pakistan, or
yeah, so twice you went to Pakistan.
Yeah, that was twice trip. So here's a picture right here from just Lahore, me chilling, and you can see how chubby I was. Just yeah, this is.
No, you remind me of my ex-boss.
Oh, jeez.
He actually kind of looked like you. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, okay.
I could usually pass up as a manager. So yeah, and then stuff. I don't know if it's gonna show if you see that picture next. I don't know how the StreamYard works. But
yeah, whatever you show on your screen. Actually, no, that's gone now. So you're gonna have to.
I could get a little slideshow together or something.
Yeah, get the slideshow. Yeah, get the slideshow. Just run it through us, run it by us, see what happened. People would like to see. Like I found my old videos and old photos from 2003, 4. I still have my old hard drive that's got all my old photos. I need an IDE connection apparently. This one, if anyone knows, if anyone can give me a solution. See this hard drive? That's got my childhood photos, and it's got my, some really stupid videos. But again, I've had this hard drive since 2005. I think I threw away that computer and kept the hard drive. And but I can't find an IDE converter. I did buy a USB to IDE converter, but it doesn't work on these for some reason. So if anyone can suggest me something, I might be able to share some very old photos of mine as well.
You should, man, because here's the problem is before going to Pakistan, me and my whole family and my whole life, you think it's just like a terrorist country. I mean, I thought it was a desert. I mean, I didn't know that there was green in Pakistan. I mean, people are so misinformed, especially growing up in the age I grew up in, like under the Reagans and Bush and all this shit. Like I had no clue that I know there's issues. I don't want to come off as some like tourists. I mean, there's significant issues. I'm loading up the pictures, but I had no clue it was such a beautiful country, and it could make billions in dollars of tourist revenue if it got rid of this stupid religion shit. I mean, that country is a gold mine. Even India too, but they love religion and they love superstition. It's just it's the weirdest thing, man. But I don't want to come off as judging or belittling but I'm also being honest that like it's such a beautiful culture.
Yeah, it's such a shame that like I've often said that I don't know I'm gonna miss those Androon Lahore's streets. Those.
Oh yeah, I got.
They're dirty, but they have their own beauty in that. Like everyone's like people are just everywhere. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Just chill, man.
It's very chilled as well. Whereas when you go to Europe, you see those old 400-500-year-old alleyways. But anyway, there you go. So there you go. That's what is this? What is this? It's called
what's that damn mosque? Badshahi Masjid. Yeah.
That's not Badshahi Mosque.
Oh, that's on the other side of Badshahi Mosque. So on the other side of this is the is the courtyard. Yeah, it's a whole facility. So I mean, these emperors.
Oh, that's
were loaded.
Bathsheba.
That and
Yeah.
right across from it, there's a courtyard, which you don't see a lot
Right.
of. That was
Right.
that was the emperor's residence.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
but do you know but do you know there's another thing right next to it?
What is it?
It's called Hira Mandi.
Uh-oh.
You know this place?
I don't. Tell me about it, man.
You naughty, you naughty boy. That's like a red light district of Lahore. Well, actually, you know, it's no, but you know, no long. It's hasn't been there for so long. I mean, old school people used to just go there and just watch some women, some dancers dance. But then, you know, sometimes if they pay a little bit more money, then they go jiggy. But anyway, so let's go next one.
So I went in July, so I got the full experience. Bahut garme, Pakistan, bahut garme, too hot. So do you see what they're walking on? Is you couldn't even walk. Only the badass uncles would walk on the concrete. Everybody had to walk on this black thing right here. It was a wet mat. And they would just spray it with water every like 5 minutes just to cool your feet, because you would literally burn your feet because it was so hot.
Right.
So I got the full experience. So this is just a beautiful place. I mean, obviously you only get in if you're a Muslim. But as the coolest thing is the women and the men just kind of intermingle together, which is really weird. It's just that weird like voluntary hijabi, but also involuntary, just from like being part of your culture. It's this weird thing. Everybody just kind of accepts it. So I mean, obviously beautiful thing. You don't see a lot of these things in Pakistan, and India wants to kind of ignore the Mughal history and stuff like that, and Pakistan likes to embrace it. Here I am inside the mosque. People are just so sweaty and so tired. They would just lay down in the mosque because people are just exhausted. You know those green topis they always leave in the mosques in Pakistan?
Yeah.
I had trouble because I have a big head, so I can never wear those plastic topis they leave in Pakistan. So you would just chill and just the beautiful greenery.
Yeah.
There was the lady I was thinking about getting hitched with, but that didn't work out.
Jesus. But Jesus, shall we see it? No, that's okay.
She was too expensive, man. Punjabi girls. No, I'm kidding. That's probably one of the streets you're thinking of, right?
Yeah, that's it. Oh, yeah, I miss those streets.
The smell. You can't. You just take a big whiff and you say, Naya, Pakistan. Now, this area, this place, Islamabad.
This is Islamabad.
What a beautiful city. Do you see what the sign says? It says, ladies, please take care for proper Islamic dress. It says that's what it says right there.
Such a shame. It's such a shame that
religion has to.
But you see why Hitchens said religion poisons everything?
Yes. Because they're faking it, because it's a fake feminism in this Islamic. But look, they're all walking together. The ladies are here, but they have their own section when it matters. So Pakistan is the best at this fake female. Like, we had Prime Minister Bhutto. You know, we have all these sexy hijabis that wear the beautiful kapre. Pakistan is the biggest fake country in terms of Islam, because it's not even a Muslim. It's not a Muslim country, man. It's not. No. It's not. But
exactly. At least Saudi Arabia and Iran make an effort. But anyway, this is a beautiful Faisal Mosque.
Beautiful Faisal Mosque. You could just chill and pray. There's one of my tour guys there, Muhammad. He spoke English, and man, he played a joke on me once. We were traveling in Bahawalpur in the streets.
Bahawalpur? You went to Bahawalpur? That's where. Oh yeah. That's a desert. There are some deserts there, bro.
Dude, Bahawalpur in July. Oh my God.
We had some inherited, some land there, agricultural land there, even though it's not the best. But
if you're a landowner, if you're a landowner in Bahawalpur, you're loaded, man.
Totally, yeah. Well, that's what my
problem.
But I don't want to give away too much. So people,
that's the problem. I'm trying not to say too much as well. That's the big problem. You know what Bahawalpur is known for? If the Pakistanis know, it's got the best halwa I've ever had in Pakistan. I think it's better than Multani halwa.
Halwa,
The way they make it in Bahawalpur is a little thicker. It's nice.
Yeah, they used to bring it every time when our relatives there who used to look after our land there, zameen there, they used to bring it. Somebody asked, what does Hira Mandi mean? Hira means diamond. Mandi means market. So it's diamond market, and hence the red light district. See, now, so this
you're not
is
supposed to take pictures.
I remember that Quran, that the fake Quran is still there. Wow, that's amazing. I remember going there when I was 11 years old. So that would make it, nearly 25 years ago. And one of the feelings I had when I was outside with your older photo that you were showing, those mountains, they're called Margla Hills, those ones. So when you're sometimes, like, they look really far away, but when you're actually walking in that path, at that time, something, just at the twilight, just after the twilight zone, you see these mountains. They look so big and they look like they're going to fall on you. And these are not very high mountains. These are very ordinary mountains, but it's just beautiful. Islamabad, but last time when I went there in 2011, it wasn't what it used to be back in the 90s. But anyway, carry on.
Well, this was 2017. And yeah, you're not supposed to take pictures inside, but I did. And it's just cool, people are chilling. As you see there, Pakistan's cool. You always see the guy that's wearing the jeans and the Western clothes, and then you have the people wearing the shalwar kameez and the desi kapde and things like that. And I was walking around in KPK with shorts and a polo, and people didn't look at me.
It has its own culture. This is why I say Pakistan it didn't end up becoming Saudi Arab or Iran, because it had a lot of influence of India and British colonization. But I'm afraid it's just going further and further towards. Oh, look at that.
Look at those Peshawari chappal. I hate those things. Those are the worst shoes on planet Earth, tearing up my fucking feet. I hate those shoes.
But they made you wear it. Hey, you're going to look cute. You're going to look cute. Hey, look, I can see your Nala as well.
My Nala. I can never figure out the fucking Nala. I hate that thing. I hate that thing.
Those of you who don't know, how do I zoom in? That's the Nala. There's a joke they make about Lahoris. The Lahoris are so stupid that they don't even realize that Nala is hanging. Nala is the string that they use to keep this shalwar, the kind of trousers, up. And look, it's hanging there.
It's so
dude,
difficult.
what is it? Is that a Nala or is something else there? Man, you're well hung there.
Well, the thing is they'll take you to the place to try on clothes, and they shove you in the clothing room like you know what you're doing. I don't know how to tie the Nala, and you got to use that pencil thing, and I'm like, I can't do it.
No. Nalepani. It's called Nalepani. It's called Nalepani.
Nalepani. Nice. So this was Kansab, another one of my tour guys. So now we're more to the north, and now we're in Swabi, which was totally different from the Punjabi. Little less ghee, little less drama. Beautiful fish fry, and look at that view right there. The mountains of the KPK, fresh air, terrorists, everything. Everything you need, extremists. But,
I went as far as Abbottabad, but this is a bit of it.
I have been to Abbottabad. I don't know. I didn't take any pictures there just for safety. But this, I'm trying to get those monkeys. We saw this.
Oh, that's an Ayubia. This is Ayubia.
Yes, I forgot the name of it. Yep, Ayubia. Yeah, that's it. Ayubia. Yeah, they took me all over the place.
Cool. They are still there. They're cool monkeys.
These were the Yusufzais, so they had this nice car and everything, but just so much economic inequality. And you would ride up the mountain, and they have those little side shops with the hose where you have to wet down the engine because the engine overheats, and you give them a couple rupees. It's so cool.
Right, and we used to, these streets, these winding streets. I when I was a young kid, I used to go through them, through this, without any equipment or anything. I'd just go climb up. It was just those were the best days. But
how about this?
Yeah, it's a really beautiful country. There you go. Hey, put some clothes on. Yeah, that's Saji. That's Saji.
Here's where I stayed in the Punjab. The true village life, where you just eat, pray, and shit all day because they're landowners and they don't do any work. The women start here with the sticks early in the morning after Fajr prayer, and they sit on their ass and cook.
So which village is this?
I'd rather not say, but it's in Bahawalpur region. I think I already said it. I think I already said it. So
that's fair enough. No, that's fair enough.
It's the second richest family in town. These are the Jutts. So very, they have those open courtyards with the house and everything.
We had exactly the similar one, but a little bit bigger, but right in the middle of the land. Yeah, see that wash basin, that sink, that's it. I don't know why we always had it outside, and behind that there would be a bathroom there. It's just why not put it inside? But this is for everyone. But it has its own beauty, though.
It really is a simple thing, and you could
Simple
obviously
thing,
tell
yeah.
that second layer is obviously an addition, but that's just to profess their wealth because the neighbor had a better
Yeah.
addition.
Keeping up with the Jonesies.
It's so weird. It's so different for me, man. It was so different, and these people, the whole family, none of them worked at all. It was all their slaves
Land, yeah.
in the field. It was really
Yeah.
weird. And then my last trip, I snuck into the beautiful. I forget where the Nawab used to stay. This beautiful area that you're only allowed to get in if you're a Pakistani citizen. So,
Right.
I made sure to I made sure to dress up like a very rich Khan, and I had my niqabi next to me. So we got in very, very quickly. And this is what the hell is the Nawab's name in Bahia? I forget his name, but seeing this was beautiful. This was my last day on my second trip after many months. So, because we weren't allowed to go in here technically, so we just kind of risked it, and eventually they kicked me out. But it was just a
What? Because they
beautiful.
found out?
Well, yeah, because I'm just walking around taking pictures and smiling because a lot, and just acting like Agora, just kind of making, making too much attention.
No,
to
but you had,
myself.
you had Pakistani girls with you.
Well, no, they asked me for my Shanakti card,
Oh, yeah.
and I didn't have I didn't I didn't have a Shanakti card, so
That's so
they
bizarre, isn't it? Why would you limit such a beautiful place from tourists? You're
well, yeah,
going to
that's
go
the
back.
thing. It's really
You're going
weird.
to go back. You're going to tell people, hey, look at
That's
these
it.
photos. But the moment you tell that, hey, you're not allowed to go in because you're white. I took my partner in Pakistan 2011, and that's exactly when a week later Bin Laden was caught. And with the Faisal Mosque that you showed, I went there. I tried to let her in. I was like, I was so excited. I was like, hey, let me show you the beauty of my country. And she was outside. And then this little scrawny little guard, he said, no, she can't go in. I said, well, how do you know? What if she's a Muslim? But they didn't let her in because she was just a white woman. And I was like, you know what? Screw you. You guys should be like, here, come in. And on one hand, this is why nobody goes to your country. It's such a beautiful country. And you already have image issues. And then you are creating anecdotal evidences like that. I mean, you should have been actually, but this is a bizarre culture. On one hand, you're a Gura, and they're treating you like a king. But on the other hand, they're discriminating you over something like as pesky as that.
Yeah, it was the Noor Mahal. I just looked at the Noor Mahal and the Shish Mahal. That's it.
Oh,
Yeah, there was a lot of that. And the checkpoints in the road where the guy sits in the plastic chair and they just have the manual thing. Like one time I didn't have my passport.
All right.
I thought I was going to be fucked because it's like a military. They have the guys with the AK-47s just chilling there, just sitting there, the really skinny guys with the big guns.
Give them 100 rupees. Give them freaking 100 rupees.
That's what I had to do.
That's corrupt people. When I see banged up abroad, those kind of TV shows, and I see, someone gets banged up in Venezuela or something, and I'm like, oh, that's very scary. Because, I'm because I'm not a Venezuelan. So I'm like thinking, oh, hang on, I'm a tourist if I get caught doing something. But when I went to Pakistan, whenever I go to Pakistan, even now if I go to Pakistan, even now if nobody recognizes me, I'd be like, get out, here, take it, just shut up. You're so corrupt. So no matter what that is, I don't fear them in that sense.
Well, nobody does. I mean, my driver was so funny. Like, he would just be like driving, like there'd be traffic, and he would just go on the other side of the road and just drive, and the cop would be there like, stop, and he would just be like, fuck you, and drive around the cop. Like, nobody cares. We're in the Guddi, just going all over the place, and like, this... He'd be driving all... Ghaffar, Uncle Ghaffar, we call him. He was the best driver because, you get a driver. You give these guys $500 to drive you around for 2 weeks. They can live for 6 months on that. So he would take me anywhere. We would go from Islamabad to Bahawalpur to Lahore in one day, and he'd be like, "All right, traffic other side of the road. Just ignore the cops. Nobody respects the cops, and that's a big thing. Is the corruption is so huge, and like to get a land certificate or a marriage certificate or a birth certificate or any record keeping, it's a joke. I mean, there's no government and there's no system. Every town has their own rich guy. Nobody, and the most qualifications in some of these villages are the most neffel that you pray. There's no like system of government. It's such a different thing for me, and I love learning it. And Americans should do that more, man. If you got, and back then it was so much cheaper to travel, and I've been blessed in my music career to be able to afford certain things. But if you have chance to travel, like do it, folks, because as you get older, you're gonna lose the chance. Because I got to do it, in my 30s kind of thing, and I just hit 40 and stuff like that, and you get to the point where you get more obligations and thing. And when you're kind of a free single person, or if you don't have a lot of bills, it's just great to travel because us Westerners have a very limited view. Like I said, I thought Pakistan was just a desert. I probably have biases in my head about Canada still, about Latin America. So I've traveled to like a lot of countries as a musician. I've been to Europe. I've been to like 20 countries. But Pakistan, even as a tourist, it was the best country I ever visited in terms of the overall experience. Now, if I went there as a woman, I probably wouldn't have the same thing, but I love it. It was a great, and is that what I didn't even look at the comment.
That's exactly what Mac is saying. Oh, I thought you were referring to her. So she said, realizing
I didn't even see the comment. I didn't even see it.
Right. So maybe there is a spiritual connection and all that waves kind of thing working. Something else is at play. Woo woo. Okay, so Mac Hassan is saying that realizing that a Pakistani woman's experience would be completely different, even if she's visiting from abroad, and that's absolutely true. As I said, my partner is a very obviously strong Western woman, and when I took her to Murray and then to Ubia, where the monkeys where you showed, that part beyond Murray. Murray is like anyone can go. It's a lot more. It's the first stop, so that's more popular, and a lot of people go there. So you can get away with a lot of things. But I wanted to go deep in the mountains, and I said, please wear a chadar. Just do something, because people were like just. And there's a gory woman with blonde hair just walking around. They're like, Angrez, yeah. I mean, I thought that maybe it's just a bit of excitement, but again, it's like there's a 27-year-old woman who's blonde and all that, and how much of that is just Angrez, or it's like, yeah, I want a piece of it, So that's what's a little bit different, but as that woman as well, like she had to be next to me all the time. So Mahak, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's a totally different ball game for a woman. But again, nobody cares about you.
Are you making did you just make a pro hijab argument? No, I'm kidding.
I did put a hijab on.
Did you give her the northern one, the white one with the red polka dots that the ladies wear up there? No, there
was a blue one. No, that's blue, isn't it? The blue with the top.
I remember in Swabi, as I got more north, it seems like all the women had this white hijab with like red polka dots. It could just be a weird thing. It seems like it was a cultural thing, but yeah, that's the weird thing about there is like I never felt like the hijab was forced, but I knew it was forced because it's like this thing it's really, and I guess they say Stockholm syndrome. I'm not good with a lot of these words, but I never understood that about Pakistan. It was the weird is that, and a lot of the beautiful things that I'm talking about, the halwa, the puri, the music in the mosque, the eating in the mosque, the male and women together, is completely contrary to actual Islam. I mean, none of this stuff that I like about Pakistan, it's Pakistanism.
Yes.
So the whole country is hypocrisy.
It's hypocrisy, and that's what we try to tell.
Pakistani weddings. You're going to tell me that's an Islamic wedding? I went. It's the biggest party I had the most fun of my entire life when I went to. I was doing the bangara. Hey, the dole guy was there. It was great. Boy, do I got a. You saw that video on my Twitter when I was doing the thing.
Yeah, the only thing that's missing is alcohol. But guess what? There's alcohol available to some guests. Yeah, so it's just they got everything. And like if somebody does complain or do something, that's why I keep saying Pakistan is not like Iran or Saudi Arabia. So no one's getting beheaded on Chop Chop Square. So if a police officer does come, hey bro, I can smell alcohol off you. There you go, 200 rupees or maybe 2,000 rupees these days. But back in my day, it used to be that much. So it's just quite fascinating that how. It has so much potential. But anyway, so let's
justify the hookah thing too. The uncles will sit.
Oh yeah. The
uncles will sit and smoke that hookah for hours and hours and hours, and you hug them, and they just reek of all that stuff. They got their faces, the like the face of a fakir, a real Punjabi uncle. They're all scratched up, a tough face, an old uncle's face. They're like 95 years old and they're still out there working, and they're just smoking hookah all day. And you're gonna tell me that weed is haram? You're gonna tell that's a stimulant. They're addicted to this hookah. They do namaz, hookah, sleep on the charpai. Get the roti coming to you. I mean, what a life, man. I mean, what a life living in Pakistan as an uncle. Come on.
Yeah.
I make jokes. But
no, but it's true though, and this is why I keep telling. And you're right about the stereotypes. Some people in America think that Pakistan is a part of Middle East, but then it's not. It's more India than anything else. And I think even Pakistanis don't realize that they also try to go like, oh, we're Middle Eastern. No, bro, you're freaking Indian. We're all Indians. And that's what and not only this, we have a big cultural footprint of India as well, as you might have noticed. For example, the only reason why Pakistan didn't end up getting a hijab culture like Saudi Arabia or Iran, because it was still heavily influenced by India and some of the British values. You might have seen in Lahore, you would have seen those girls in really modern shalwar kameez, and they're very revealing as well.
Lahore Kuri.
Lahore Kuri, yeah, that's correct. So, and you didn't end up going to Karachi, so it would have been even more different. But anyway, so I've never been to Karachi.
Well, isn't the weird thing, the specific example of that, when I started talking to I hung out with some old school Lahoris, like some old school military generals and stuff, just to get in, and they told me, like, they used to say Khuda Hafiz, and now they say Allah Hafiz. So, and they used to wear, you would see like shalwar kameez, and now you see more jubas and things like that. So it's this slow Arabization. And this guy told me all these stories of the 70s and the 80s, and everybody likes to blame it on the guy General Zia and stuff like that. And when I went to Islamabad, they have outside of that Faisal Mosque, right across from it is a tomb, a mazar to General Zia. They like worship this guy.
People still love him. People still worship this guy. And he was killed off by the Americans. So I don't know why not soon enough.
It's an interesting country, man. It's the biggest paradox, but God, the food is so good. By the way, I haven't talked about the food yet. Best food on planet, and it's better than Indian food. You fuckers, it's better than Indian food.
What's the difference? There's a bit more meat in that. There's a bit more flavoring. And again,
it's Mughal food.
But if you go to India as well, I think India is such a huge country. You'll find different places. Sriram Prasanna Kapali is saying, I don't know if he's saying it out of anger or frustration, or is actually just being sarcastic. He's saying, Harrisol, you said most haram thing, calling Pakistani cultures. Oh, right, he's being sarcastic. Okay, so let's take one of our patrons or guests or members. He has a question for you. Salvador Dali, what would you like to say, bro?
Well, they just come right in. Cool.
Yeah, no knocking, no nothing. Just come, bro. Hello, Salvador. You're taking a dump, bro. All right. I think he's probably not ready. Okay, so
I like that name, Salvatore. Nice Italian name, though. I want to talk to this guy.
Yeah, he's a full-on Packy.
Salvador? Oh, Salvador Dali. Oh, that's his avatar. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's his avatar. Okay, so Pakistan. So when you started, so you said the theology took you away from it. So
yeah.
When did you leave Pakistan? When was the last time you visited Pakistan, and when did you transition away from religion, got away? Because my first exposure to you was when Abdullah Samir retweeted your little video where you were saying, look at this isnad, look at the chain. And I don't know where you found it, and I think this is why I asked you. I said, send it to me, man. It's so convincing. It's the same argument, whether you like it or not. It's the same argument that we say, why does God not come in front of the White House and give us evidence? So, but anyway, putting that aside. But it's the same argument when you visualize it. When you put it in perspective, you say, look at the isnad. How can anyone in the sane mind tell us that, it's not contaminated? So that was my exposure. So, yeah.
No, sorry. I don't want to. I feel like I'm interrupting sometimes because there may be a delay. So I don't want to interrupt you.
So my point was, let me finish out the question. So my question was, so when you came back, when did you get exposed to Hadith, and when you converted to Islam? Sorry, actually, yeah, that's a different thing. I should have asked you that before, but I forgot. But I'll ask that later. So when you came back, when did it start occurring to you? Oh, hang on, this Hadith. Did you run into some ex-Muslim, the critics of Islam, who were saying, ha ha, camel urine, ha ha, flying donkey, and you were like, bro, what's going on? What happened?
No, that stuff never really affected me at all, because that stuff would affect probably the Salafi Wahhabi school a little bit more, because the Barelvi can kind of BS their way around all those hadiths. So for me, what you're talking about, the mutton, was not really ever a big deal for me at all. I would always, even the day after I converted, and my first kind of lesson was, what do you eat? And they're trying to, and then like, how do you, so in the back of my head, every Muslim knows that there's like some kind of weird stuff, and you always keep it in the back of your head. Like why do you follow these rules and things like that. And Sufis usually have kind of nice woo-woo answers for those things, like why do you suck your fingers, the bacterial enzymes, things like that, But so the content was never a big deal for me, and that's why you always have these channels. Look at this hadith, let's laugh, Muhammad's a rapist, that's great. But for me, I always wondered, like, where the hell does this stuff come from? Because I know the interview probably sounds like you're interviewing a Muslim so far. So for me, after seeing all the divergence, like going to Pakistan and almost going through with a marriage, but it didn't. I decided not to go. Thank God I didn't do that, or thank Thor I didn't do that. Whatever, thank me that I didn't do that. The differences got to me. And you go to these mosques and you see all these hadith books and you hear all these stories of the Prophet. I'm like, do we really know everything about this fucker? Like what he ate, how much semen was on his clothes, like all these conflict. Do we really know? Like people go and study 20 years of hadith and just rattle off these Arabic things. And I wanted to ask, because as a Christian, I was curious. Like most Christians don't look at biblical manuscripts. But I was the kid that was 15 looking at biblical manuscripts. So maybe that's just how my brain works. So most Muslims don't look at isnads because they see sahih and they're good. Or their imam says Abu Hurairah, blah, 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 blah. Oh, it's a hadith, it's a Sunni, it's in Bukhari. I said, where the fuck does this stuff come from? So I started looking at an isnad, and like I posted it on Twitter, the second you look at an isnad, you say, oh my God, this is bullshit. So for me, the isnad and how the religion came to us did it for me. Because I think pure Islam, the more I got into the history, and I follow Sneakers Corner on YouTube, which is trying to get down to historical Islam, seemed like, this is where I'll piss off a lot of ex-Muslims. Muhammad seemed like a decent figure for his time.
I always say that.
He seemed like he just wanted to unite people for an empire. He wanted to conquer land. He wanted to establish a system of justice. He didn't really care about peace and love. He had a lot of minor petty raids and created a very small empire, and he used to camp outside of his empires, and they used to pray however they wanted. The whole idea of a leader running a prayer with a line of people came like 100, and that isnad that I posted on Twitter was the idea of, because Omar was a control freak. He wanted to lead the prayer. But Muhammad, you just used to go to the mosque and chill. So I found the original Islam that you have to do the work, not the original, but the history of hadith and stuff. I did a little bit of the work, and I found a religion that I didn't feel like I was practicing. So all these things were in the back of my head, and I ate up the sahih. But in my tradition, we used a lot of da'if hadith. We would celebrate Muharram. We would put lights in the mosque. We would celebrate Eid al-Milad. We would do all these things, and then the mosques down the street didn't. And we had hadith, and they didn't have hadith. I was Minhaj al-Quran, so Tahir al-Qadri, most is daif. So how did this hadith get? Why do we have 6 hadith books? Why does it say Muhammad was born in this year and it was born in another year? So it all goes back to like 1 or 2 companions. And do you know, even in the Islamic tradition, do you know how many authentic hadith that we can guarantee every narrator, multiple change, mutawatir hadith back to the Prophet, even in Islamic tradition? 1 hadith.
Bullshit.
1. Now, everything, no, 1 that goes back to the Prophet. Now, all these other hadith in the books, they go back to a companion. That's the thing. They go back to a companion or a tabareen. Abu Hurairah, who the fuck is that guy? When you read Bukhari, it's going back to Abu Hurairah. It's going back to Aisha, right? Okay, all the companions, they used to chill with Ali. All these Bukhari, that's the thing. Even Harold Motsky, let me just finish this one thing. Even Harold Motsky, the greatest Western scholar of hadith, he took all the Islamic tradition and he got 6 hadith that go back to the Prophet. Most of these books, they go back to a companion. And you have to make a decision as a Muslim that says companion must have known something about Muhammad. And I wasn't able to make that link. I wasn't able to go from companion to Muhammad. But in the Islamic tradition, to actually go to the Prophet, 1 mutawatir hadith. And that did it for me.
I want to know that. Which one is it?
Yeah, I have a PDF. If I'll whip it up for you right now. It's the hadith that says anybody that makes up a tradition of me will burn in hellfire.
Well, that one.
That's the one.
Oh, yeah. So when you say it goes back to Muhammad, so Abu Hurairah also claimed that he heard that from Muhammad. So is that what you're saying? That is directly saying the words themselves are the ones that make us help us understand where it's coming from?
So for example, I have my buddy.
Right.
Go ahead. Sorry, it's a cross thing again. I interrupted you.
So for example, all these hadiths, we know that so and so and so and so said that I heard Muhammad, instead of Muhammad himself saying that I will not, anyone who makes up stuff according to me or associated with me, he'll burn in hellfire. So is that what you're saying? That's where the problem is?
Exactly.
So someone, very first person, but what's the actual difference? Because the person who's actually saying the Muhammad part When Muhammad saying there would have been someone else in the chain as well who would have given it on to someone else. So
That's the theory. No, that's the thing. Well, it's big difference. So the one what mutawatir means is that we can verify every single chain in the isnad, every single, and even a sahih is not consistent between different. I mean, it has its own thing, and this is not. I mean, hadith science they call it is not really a science. It's just their own thing. It's pretty cool. So to get to that mutawatir, what I'm doing, what the scholars have done, and I have this PDF right now. I'll put it on screen share to explain everything. Sure. Is they guarantee every step in the chain, and it doesn't just go back to Abu Hurairah saying the Prophet told me. It goes back to multiple witnesses saying the Prophet told me this, and that's very rare in hadith. What we have a lot of is a lot of one companion saying, I heard this, or this guy saying, I heard this, or this lady. When I studied isnad chains, you'd be surprised how many women are in this tradition. We don't hear about these women. I mean, there's women in these chains. There's women. There's women. You hear about Aisha, but in the middle is where it's all about. And that's why a lot of these chains, only one person would record it. And you won't have much. So to get multiple that says, okay, we heard it from this guy, we heard it from this guy, we heard it from this guy. Like if I had a story from my family from the Civil War that was only told through my family through me, that's basically what Bukhari is. But then if I had another family that was in the same war, that would be that. But if I had multiple members of my family and friends that stuck together since 1868 and kept written records, that would be mutawatir, and we have one of those. And I'll whip up that PDF. So that's the difference. And I'm not a scholar. I'm just kind of regurgitating it. But to compact this all, it's very new to a lot of Muslims. And I might have misspoken a couple times, but that's what did it for me is the isnad. I hope it helps a little bit. But let me get this PDF. And I have the link too. The article is called "The Authenticity of Prophetic Hadith: A Pseudo Problem." It was written in 1999 by Wel Halak. So I like to read things that were pre 9/11. In terms of Islam, it's really helpful. Much more consistent. You know, the Western and Eastern scholars used to work together so much better, and then after 9/11, things have gotten really.
Alicia, good luck. Islam has zero archaeological evidence from its garbage of lies, and John spends his time studying the history of Hadith.
It is a bit of a waste of time, yeah.
But Alicia, you got to understand, he lived in that. See, this is the thing, right? He believed in that. But once we open that up, actually, I think Salvador Dali's back. So while you're loading it up, should I bring him on?
Yeah, I have it now. If you want me to whip it up, or we could take Salvador. Yep, I'll do the share.
Just run that by us very quickly because I think it's very powerful the way not the chart. So yeah, tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, this is thing. Yeah, for isnad, you guys can look up in isnad and you'll see. So this is the Islamic tradition. So the problem of mutawatir, which engenders certainty. So in the Islamic tradition, if you want to guarantee a hadith, and be really picky, like a Western critical scholar, you're going to look for mutawatir. So Ibn Salah, which was one of the earliest hadith scholar, even in his repertoire, they don't even include this category. So he argued in categorical terms that mutawatir is a rarity. He who is asked to produce an example of a hadith that is transmitted in a mutawatir fashion will be exhausted by his search. Now, this is an Islamic scholar from the 8th century. In his own search, 10th century. In his own search for such hadiths, he could cite only one, presumably narrated by more than 100 companions. So for me, if 100 companions said that Muhammad said this and we could guarantee every step of the chain and it's documented, probably said this. And what that hadith is he who intentionally lies concerning something I have said will gain a seat in hellfire. And I would expect companions to have recorded that. Now, the other hadith which he could find that seemingly met the standards are, and this is the first hadith in Bukhari, is acts are judged by their niyyah. And that's basically you get to 2, but even that is not. And the later theoretician in 1119, Ansari, who kept this tradition going, accepted his argument, and he got to kind of six hadith. So this is the Islamic tradition, and it's a big deal for me. And as somebody that grew up with like textual evidence, I want to know, like, hadith are good for jurists, like if you're a king and you want to make a ruling for the time. But if I'm going to find theology, how to worship, how to act, how to think about people, that tradition is not good enough for me. The Quran, I think, meets my standard. Not for theology as a historical document. I could verify hadiths. I can't do theology.
Quran, obviously,
People are
Quran.
obsessed with hadith today. Fareed responds. I mean, his whole channel is dedicated to obsessing over this hadith. What a wasted mind. I mean, that's a scientific mind because this tradition is so all these traditions, it's beautiful. People, there's not a lot of forged hadith. There were, but these aren't people just making up change. These are people trying their best, but it's a flawed method. And people today are studying the flawed epistemology. And these Salafis, that's all they do. And there's Islamic scholars that said, hey, there's better stuff. Let's look at the Greeks. Let's look at the philosophers. Let's look at the Christians. Let's look at the Shias. Let's look at the Ismailis. Let's look at the Sufis. Let's go easy on these hadith. And then this motherfucker Ibn Taymiyyah came up and started this whole purist thing. So
Yeah.
you're not going to hear a lot of this stuff. I put a few of those videos up on Twitter and stuff. I might do more of this stuff on my YouTube, but you're always going to get the thing that I don't speak Arabic. I'm not a scholar. So I always kind of fear that. I fear becoming the victim of a response video because I'm not an expert, but I've tried to do my part. I've tried.
The moment someone looks into hadiths, and that's where, and even someone who's read the Quran at least once with translation and understood most of it, absorbed as much as you could, you've understood Islam more than 99% of people. And I'm not exaggerating that. As you've been to Pakistan, you've known Pakistanis, Indians, Muslims, and even Indonesian and Malaysian, they're even further off. They don't know any of the nitty-gritties. They don't know Arabic. So why are they Muslims? So if someone says, oh, you don't know Arabic, so then you say, okay, so what about all these other Muslims who don't know Arabic? So by your logic, they're not Muslims. So screw you. So I don't really care about that. I mean, people like Muhammad Hijab come in and try to bully, and but this in this day and age, it's very difficult to be intellectually dishonest. I don't know if you saw the clip where Muhammad Hijab actually lied to apostate prophet, and he picked this other what's the word they used? The whole narratives in the Quran. A Qiraat. He used this other Qiraat, and he said this Qiraat actually means there are other suns. But then the very next word after that was moon, which was still singular. So he was saying that our sons, but he didn't use the word qamar. Qamran would have been plural, but qamar was even in the other both the Qiraats. It was qamar. So he was making an argument. Look, it says suns, meaning there could be other solar systems. See, God is talking about other solar systems. But then the obvious answer was, if that was the case, then why did he use just moon? Suns, solar systems, and one moon? It doesn't make any sense. But he on live in the discussion, he just swallowed that bit. So that shows that he's clearly dishonest. So, dishonesty gets caught out these days anyway. But let's take Salvador Dali. What would you like to say, bro?
Hey, John.
Hey, what's up?
Good. Man, I had a question. Like, did you accept Islam because you were just fascinated by the culture, coming to a new culture, a new country? Do you think that was part of the reason that you were attracted to, number one? And my second question is on hadith. Like,
can I do one at a time, man? Because
my
mind,
sure.
I just trail. I have a weird mind like that. So
yeah.
No, it was theology first, and it was just reading an English Quran, really, and I kind of enjoy. And the first mosque I went to was the Wahhabi mosque, and I did like the Shahada thing, and they told me to go to the mosque down the road if you want to learn stuff. And that mosque just happened to be the Desi mosque, and it just kind of ended up like that. So that's kind of all I knew. So the culture happened after, but yeah. So for me, it was more of theology first.
Narration, like, did you not like always thought in the beginning that this narration, the idea that you have asnad, did it not seem fallacy from the day one, or especially coming from a Western point of view? You cannot trust people telling a chain of stories. Do you think, or like, why do you think you spend so much time understanding and discussing and not rejecting it in the beginning though?
I just want to add to it, and as I said, that I want to ask you that, and this was a part of that. So when you're actually converting to Islam, and I asked this question to Deborah as well, because I want to understand the methodology, the tricks that they use, and we've had some leaked videos where the people say, oh, don't tell them about tricky bits, tell them about the good, sexy bits of Islam. So do you think at some point you were told, again, you said that yourself, that the theology attracted you, so you were obviously, nobody forced you to convert to Islam or anything. Not even in other people's cases, nobody gets forced in this day and age. At least I'd like to think that. But once you think there was somewhere deception that you would say that, why didn't they tell me this? Why did I not know this? Did you know apostasy is, So did you know all that?
The reason is I had really good answers, and I'm glad that I fell into the mosque that I did. I had a really well-trained imam and a very proper tariqah and a very proper ijaza and a very proper answers, and that's what pure Islam is. In Salafism, there's no good answers. That's why every individual Salafi has to just bullshit on the spot. So Minhaj al-Quran is a very well-trained organization with very
Tahir al-Qadri?
Yeah, I met Tahir al-Qadri a couple times. Yeah, so the imams are very well trained.
He's deceitful.
I know a lot. I could tell you some stuff off stream about how he makes his money and stuff too, but I don't want to say it publicly because it would be considered slander. But yeah, he's extremely deceitful.
That's fair enough. But forget about the money part. But I'm saying, on one hand, he actually in Pakistan he says that, I'm the one who helped General Zia put blasphemy law and recommend give Islamic arguments for killing of blasphemers. But when he's interviewed in America, then he says, this is bad.
Yeah, I saw him flounder in that interview with Mehdi Hassan. I mean, I've never seen Tahir Qadri flounder like that because he lives in his own bubble, where people follow him around and kiss his hand and he blows in the water and they do dumb, all that weird desi shit, and then they justify it using Islam, and there's weird American shit too. I'm not saying that every culture has weird shit, but actually touching the sheikh's feet and kissing his feet. I saw my imam kiss the sheikh's feet. So there's always weird shit. But after I converted to Islam, I used to teach public school, so I had the whole summer off. So it started in the summer. So after Fajr prayer, the imam, nice, chill, Sufi guy, simple village, Punjabi, after Fajr prayer, we would just walk in the parking lot, and he would answer all my questions. And starting in week 1, I would ask the questions. How was the Quran put together? Tell me about slavery. Tell me about women's rights. Tell me about Uthman. And Islamic apologetics is very good at, like you said, kind of lying. And it's not really lying, it's just they have very well-developed answers in the tradition. But right now, what you see on YouTube and stuff is the very aggressive, like confrontational thing. But he answered all those questions very well. So I had all the questions about hadith, the content. I never questioned the isnad until on my own. I always had questions about the content of the hadith, and I just trusted these books and this hadith thing. And on Wikipedia, when you looked up hadith criticism back in the day, you didn't get all this stuff. You didn't hear it. But now if you look up hadith criticism on Wikipedia, you could actually learn about isnad. So I learned about the mutton, and the imam did a very good job to answer questions. That imam ended up leaving, and I started to get a lot of these questions. And then, I started to do my own research, and I said, yeah, this hadith on an isnad level is no good for me. But on a mutton level, I'm even the age of Aisha in my tradition, you could work around it very easily. But if you're a dumbass Salafi and you believe in literalism and you have to make shit up all the time, then you're going to be stuck. But, Minhaj al-Quran has well-trained imams.
See, this is what I don't get. See, this is like, I think you're either prone to believing in interpretations and twisting and turning. You're either prone to unnecessarily complicating simple things. You're either into that or you actually go into literal. And this is one thing in common with atheists and Salafis, and I agree with that. We try to understand things on their face value. If the words say that this was 9-year-old girl, that's a 9-year-old girl. Don't say that. Back in those days, 9-year used to be adult. Girls used to mature at the ages of 6. Because I've heard some people say. But there was this woman who actually said that back in the day the air rotation was so slow that 9 years actually meant 18 years in this day and age.
That's like a Salafi thing. Like Tahir al-Qadri will just say like kind of whatever. It's just a matter of interpretation, man.
No, but I think that's also because a lot of times people are trying to like base it on modern laws. Like 9-year-olds did not matter 200 years back. Matter at all now because it matters because of the whole the world's evolved now more. The morality has changed, so now they're trying to like backtrack. Okay, this meant something else. I don't think so. Original people really cared about it at all in the beginning, and also like I think like the original tafsirs. If you look at the Jalalains and the before ones, they're all like they take a lot of things literally. For example, they took the earth is flat literally. as mentioned in
Yeah.
the Quran. They did
Well,
not.
as I said, I mean,
No, that's not true. No, that's you're just making that up, dude. Because because I just read this. I'll bring the PDF. What tafsir you're talking about? What's the first
No,
tafsir?
I mean the first one, Ibn Kathir and stuff like that.
That's not the first tafsir. See, this is the problem. Is we think that, and this is why if you
Okay, I could
hang
be
out,
wrong. Yeah.
if you hang out with the Barelvis, that's the thing. You know what people parrot is they think the Salafi stuff is the only so Tabari and Ibn Kathir people think is the only thing, mainly because it's the only one translated into English. But there are tafsirs that are pre-Tabari. And all that the earliest tafsirs, and I'm not trying to be confrontational. I like playing devil's advocate. Because I wish more Muslims knew this stuff. The earliest tafsir deals with Arabic only. It only deals with Arabic because nobody understood the language. That's why Kirat and Ahruf is an issue. The earliest, the week after Muhammad died, nobody knew what the hell the Quran even meant at all. So the earliest tafsirs dealt with just Arabic, just pure Arabic. Now, Tabari and Ibn Kathir, those fuckers came later, and you read some brutal stuff, and the Salafis love that stuff.
Back, hang on a sec, Salvador. Yeah. But when you go back, Ibn Abbas is considered to be the oldest one, but then they disagree on the fact that whether it is preserved in the original text or not. Yep. And and obviously a lot of that, it has its own isnad as well. But Ibn Abbas, because he was nephew of Muhammad, is considered okay. If it is his, then it's the oldest. And Tayyib Qadir, by the way, is a massive fan of Ibn Abbas. I think he puts that higher than all other types of ones. But when you go in the older ones, they're actually more messed up. I mean, for example, in Ibn Abbas, sex slavery is not even discussed as in like For example, if you look at Madudi, for instance, Madudi is like a little bit tries to go around it with sex slavery and whatnot, because that would have been an issue in time of Madudi. But that wasn't an issue in Ibn Abbas' time. And for example, and you look at the actual timeline of these tafsirs, when these scholars were actually writing it, you see the strong imprint of that time. But anyway, it's a different topic altogether. Thank you very much for coming.
It's good, but the only reason you know about that one is because of the English translation. So, and Ibn Abbas, we don't have that tafsir. That's the thing. We just don't have it. So what we have is Abdul Razak. We have a lot of, and this is why you even use Sirah. And that's the thing. The Salafis aren't going to use the Sirah because they don't usually believe in that literature because there's no isnad. So to really get to a holistic approach, you would use the Sirah. You would use the early tafsir. You would use the variety of hadith. You would use the Bible. You would use the Quran, the archaeological inscriptions. You would use the Christian accounts of what the Christians were saying about Muhammad in the 7th century. So using all these, you can get a different picture. But yeah, if you only read like Tabari and Kathir and a lot of these narrations that are on the Islamic websites,
I think Sirah. I reckon Sirah
is wild.
Sirah is wonderful. Sirah is actually, at least it's trying to communicate in a human manner, like it's not speaking riddles, it's not Quran like rhyming and try to be poetic. It's actually a book, like supposed to be a book. But anyway, thank you very much for coming, Salvador. I'll have to take a couple of others.
Can I do the screen share real quick about the first tafsirs real quick? Because I have a lot of articles and stuff, because I like being nerdy, so you guys don't have to. So yeah, this is a great article that came out this year by I forget the guys. I'll cite it at the end. According to Schuller in 96, at first writing was only used in the form of personal notes that scholars made in their so-called sahifas, and that's the earliest version of hadith. At a later state, at first in Medina, such notes were made available to the students in the school. So, just talking about how the tradition works. And the earliest collection of notes on Quranic exegesis by scholars may be reconstituted partially from quotations and later sources that go back to the students' revisions of these notes. So yeah, this is the guy. His name is Mr. Veer Stieg, and he does, a really good study. But a thorough study of the common features and differences in these quotations may still reveal some elements of their teaching. So that's how we have to do in any Islamic history. You just have to collect a hodgepodge of things because there's just nothing. There's not a lot of writing and things. And the earliest things we find in terms of comments are words that a lot of us probably haven't heard, is the Sufyan al-Thawri, the Ibn Juraji, and al-Dahak. This guy, when I started doing hadith research, this name came up a lot in the early tradition. He was one of the first converts to Islam. He was a Bedouin. And he got disrespected so much after Muhammad died because he didn't suck up to the caliphs. This guy was a simple man who knew Islam, who tried to interpret the Quran. He was a pure person, but he didn't suck up to Abu Bakr. He was literally, look, if you look up this name, he was, I think, one of the first converts to Islam, and he was treated like shit. And he wrote one of the first tafsirs of the Quran that never survived, and he narrated a few hadiths, but I think he narrated a lot more hadiths that didn't survive because he was one of the pure Bedouins.
Okay. Right. Al-Dahak, that seems like a very interesting guy. So, yeah, obviously, none of these tafsirs that we have, they haven't survived in the main scholar. Well, I'm sure the scholars would know about it, but it hasn't really survived in.
Well, the Islamic scholars know all this shit, but they keep it to themselves, and that's the problem. And Yasser Qadi is trying to release the mysteries of Medina University to the world, and is not going well. I just wanted to find the section about what they were talking about. So yeah, the three types of exegesis we see in the earliest tafsirs are borrowed from Jewish tradition of Torah interpretation, and that's the natural thing. When you would bring the Quran to Muhammad, what's the first thing he said? Refer to the Torah. So the Haggidic, the narrative, the Halachic, the legal, and the Masoretic, the textual exegesis. So these were the three types of what they were trying to explain. Was the narrative of what was going on when this verse was revealed, the legal, how does this apply to the rulings that matter today, and the textual, what does this word mean? Now, legal rulings used to change. The legal councils would make a ruling one year, and then they would make a different legal ruling the next year, and that used to be fine in the Islamic world. But now people take these legal rulings as like theology. Like, that's not what it is. The legal rulings used to change. So we find that early Islam was so loose, and they cared about the Arabic, they cared about the Jewish scriptures, and this narrative just hasn't survived. The surviving narrative that we've gotten in the past 200 years of Islam has been led by oil money and literalism and a certain family and the Ibn Taymiyyah school. But man, when you get back to the early history and you download these fringe dissertations and you look into Isnad, you find a very cool thing. And that's why I kind of enjoy studying this stuff, even after leaving Islam, because I don't really like following it, but it's a cool tradition. And the problem is, man, this religion isn't going away. That's the problem. So I think it's good.
I reckon it'll go away because I
so?
reckon, I reckon it is. I have a totally different worldview on that, and I'll take the next call. I bet 1987 Shachar, I don't know what that is, but Haris Sultan, I'm not joking, but John is probably the best guy to debate people on the Hadith. So I agree. He had me, as I said, the very first exposure of John I had, he had this chart. He was discussing the Isnad, and it was a visual representation. I asked him to send it to me, but he had a very low resolution. It had all this, all these chains going up, and it was such a mess. It was so jumbled up, and I said, "Aha! Finally, it's in like it's like it was like if you guys watch tennis, then you see how it starts from round of 16, and then 8, and then 4, and then 2, and then so there's a whole ladder there, and that's how it was over 200 years. So you go, how can you say that nobody misunderstood or screwed up somewhere along the way? So and that was it. I was like, wow, that makes it was a 2-minute video. I think I retweeted it someplace, so have a look. Go to my Twitter and find, and obviously follow John on his Twitter. Okay, so Dindra is out to get me. I think I saw some of your private comments. So Dindra, what do you got? You want to team up on me with John?
I think finally I got another person who says you need to operate in the gray more than the black and white like you do.
Well, I'm a rationalist, so I don't like to buy hoo-ha. He admits it himself. He said it himself. He said it himself. It might be woo-woo, but but if it works for him, it works for him. But it doesn't work for me.
Rationalism dictates that other than the black and white, the gray exists as well.
Yeah, but that's not gray. Like, I mean, if it's gray, then it'll stay gray. So I don't know. If it works for you, then it works for you. I saw your private comment. You said something like, Harris, God didn't appear to Moses. It's a claim that God appeared to Moses. I know that. That's what we call Socratic approach. We go by the claim that the person is making, and we try to analyze that within that worldview. And that was a worldview that I was suggesting, that if we are to accept that worldview, then that suggestion or that demand is nothing out of exception. That this is my argument of exceptionality. There's nothing exceptional in these when we speak about Abrahamic religions. So I don't know. I don't see what the problem. I mean, it's still.
I made that comment in the context in which you said that
I was,
God used to appear then, and why doesn't He appear now?
no,
So that
I
was
was talking 2 types of God. I was talking about 2 types of God. I said so. If there is another type of God, which is probably more likely, but even more vague and mysterious than this one, then that God is irrelevant because he doesn't want to take any part in that. So I've got this covered, bro.
Yeah, but you
no,
also
that's
have
fine.
to make the epistemological choice that the literal reading is what the original intention of that verse was. And I don't think even in the Jewish tradition that was the case. I mean, you look at, the flood happened historically. I think the scientists have pinpointed what the actual flood was in that region. We have accounts of this flood. So it's a historical account, but it's developed a mythology. Now, the earliest Jews probably thought that this stuff was true. Now, if you want to think that it's true, then you're being just as simple as the early Jews. So if you want to think like an Iron Age Jew, Harris, you can. But as we go on in history, we can just say that, all right, the Earth wasn't created in 6 days, but we could take anything. That's why you don't see Jews today practicing these things in the Old Testament, because it says you got to kill, you got to do this, because interpretations move on. Islam, I don't feel, has gotten there yet. They're so literal.
I see a lot of Jews are leaving too, but this is my point. See, so this is exactly my point of my argument of no exceptionality. Is that so? What is it special about these theologies? I mean, okay, so don't take it literally. Okay, for the last 3,000 years, people have been taking it literally, but now that we have discovered ourselves that it's not meant to be taken literally because we have found the objective truth. There was no global flood. There have been floods everywhere, and the same flood story has been sold in the Epic of Gilgamesh as well. It's been in the Islamic flood story is different as well. Floods happen everywhere. If you go to Sindh, it comes freaking every year. Half the Sindh gets flooded. So what's so special? So
I think it's naive. It's very naive for us to assume that what worked, that we know we still don't know how the pyramids were built, man. We don't know how Göbekli Tepe was built. So these were obviously ways to control the populace. There's practical. We could talk about anthropology of why people why people thought that worshiping the king was a good thing, that why feudalism worked, humans. But if we had a bunch of atheists in 1000 BC, it would be a shit. So these are practical. But then I don't want to act like an atheist and say that this is why. So to say that why this worked, that's a separate discussion, because why God, you're going from why God exists to why does this religion work to why does this text do this. It's like all the atheists have all these blah 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 things.
No, these are multiple arguments that we have, and I think all of them are very strong arguments within themselves. As I said, if you're going to sell me an exceptional idea, which sounds very exceptional, and every facet of life that we've made.
Just because you think it's exceptional doesn't mean the religious person has to fit your definition. What is so exceptional about
it? It is exceptional because it is exceptional that there is a conscious singular being up there who planned everything while it's so hidden. There is absolutely zero shred of evidence, as I said, objectively, not saying that that's all there is. All of that shows us no evidence of that, so it becomes exceptional. So when you sell me something exceptional, then give me some exceptional arguments. When we quote out your script, you say, well, it could be interpreted that way. When we say, okay, not that exactly, literally it says this, then you say, well, it was just for the simple-minded people back then. Then every which way we grab this beast, we are given some sort of a bullshit answer. So you know what? This is why it doesn't make sense.
It's not a bullshit answer. It's not bullshit. It's a different answer. It's a different answer. That's the thing. And I don't know if you have the same strict method for. I keep coming back to the gravity, but there's a thing with gravity. You can believe it, which we all believe. We can know it's true, but do we understand every mechanism of it? Now, I'm not saying that God is gravity. I'm just saying that it's a concept that for thousands of years has done something to us. There's some people that think that there's a God gene, that there's a natural proclivity. Humans want to be in the herd. They want to be in the tribe. And priests and Brahmins, they've always been the upper class. The upper classes of society have always known that religions are very effective ways to control people. Imagine I've been to Yellowstone National Park in America. Like, you're up in the mountains. There's no fog. Like, when you see stars And if you lived in pollution your whole life, you just see these little white things in the sky. When you go to a pure area and you see that they're all different colors, there's pink star, yellow, blue. If I'm like a Neanderthal, I'm gonna be freaking bewildered. I mean, so but this is anthropology. Now, if you have a time machine in 2020 and you go back in time, I mean, you could sit there with your T-shirt and polo, and they're going to say you're an idiot. They're going to say, "What's going on with your hair? What's going on with your beard? Why do you believe? What's this cell phone?" And it's like, when we go to those tribes in India where they have the arrow and the helicopters flying, like, is it better for is it our job to just bring what we believe? So I know you want people to bring you that objective proof, but just because you want it doesn't mean the religions have to fit your need. And that's the thing. The idea of a religion is that humans come to the religion. Humans come to the way of life. The way of life doesn't have to meet the needs of confused apes. And we are just confused apes.
but that suits pretty much every bullshittery if you want to defend that bullshittery.
That's my woo. That's my woo.
That's what I'm saying. So that could justify anything. So we can believe in Amazonian tribes as well, and we can believe in all their myths as well, because wow. So it's a totally different ballgame the way we're discussing that. But again, objectivity, and they say the universe has one language, which is mathematics, and it makes sense whether the symbols might look different, but it adds up. And no matter which part of the universe you are, as long as we understand the laws of the physics, laws of the nature, that then they add up, whether you're on Pluto, you're on some other super thing or not. But philosophies might be different there. But some people say even logic will always be, deductive, especially deductive logic, will always be every smart species anywhere else in the universe would be able to, if it works it out as well, it would still remain the same. But anyway, Sudhindra, sorry,
no, that's fine. I enjoyed watching you. Yeah. I actually wanted to, since you both know a lot more about Islam than I do, this is a question that I wanted to throw to you, the both of you. I am personally of the opinion that if reform has to be brought in Islam, it has to be in the present scenario. The only way that Muslims can reform is to move away from Islam, because as long as they keep reinterpreting the text, as long as the text says what it does, there are going to be objectionable material for others. So I see only two ways. One is either Muslims completely move out of it, or they acknowledge that what is in there is not in the best interests of everyone, and it needs to be removed. You can't remove historical things.
This Indian
but
shit. Yeah, no,
what
no.
is metaphysical thing? It.
Vaccine.
No, this is this Muslim hatred that comes. Are you in India, bro?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
What is metaphysical cannot be removed. What is metaphysical? At least something like, okay, in a way that it gets neutered to such a level that it doesn't harm someone else or himself. So which is more probable and which is more acceptable?
All right, now I made the joke. I made the joke about the Indian thing, man, because I feel like you're guided by a lifetime of what you've been hearing and things. So those aren't the two options, and no other religion has been held to these two options. And I'm against the Islam stuff, but this religion, Islam, has been beat to shit for so many years, and they're given these ultimatums that no other religion has given. Hinduism is the craziest, most destructive, hateful religion I have ever experienced, and it has gotten no criticism at all. Christianity went through a Reformation, and during the Reformation, they didn't say, oh, you have to say all your verses. It's shaming. Everybody wants Muslims to either leave or say that their religion is bullshit.
No, I didn't say
Let me finish, okay? Because that's the thing.
Okay.
What needs to happen is nobody is willing to have a third answer, because I know everybody hates Muslims. They blow up the towers, blah, 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 Mughal, Aurangzeb, all this stupid shit you hear on your TV. Whatever. Muslims are bad. I get it. Okay. But the way that the Muslims have dealt with this throughout history, this is not a new problem. This is a problem that's been around this type of problem is at most 70 years old. These texts have always existed. So what I think, and this is like Majid Nawaz didn't even say, I might be the only one that has this idea. What I think, because Islam is never going to go away, I think what needs to happen is you're not going to shame Muslims. I'm sorry I get a little fired up here, but because it's coming from your country. Is this the shame of Muslims and the people that you follow and Robert Spencer and all this stuff that your government is paying for? The shame in Muslims is not going to work. What's going to work is equipping Muslims with the skills to interpret those hadith. And they don't have that right now. Christians have all these bad verses. The Bhagavad Gita is full of bullshit. The Bible's full of bullshit. All of these scriptures are full of bullshit. But these religions have methods to interpret. I don't think most Muslims don't even know what an isnad is. So giving Muslims more options is better than trying to shame them and make them feel like the worst religion, because it's not. In many ways, it's better than Christianity. In many ways, it's a better religion, far better than Hinduism. In many ways, it's better than Christianity. So we can't just expect them to shame their bad verses that every other religion has. Now, we're going to admit it, but we also have to equip Muslims with the skills to criticize hadith like the Mu'tazilas used to do, like the Abbasids used to do. That's my answer. A little fired up. I love India, but I don't like racism.
That's fine. That's fine. Okay, let me ask you, John, one thing. Give me one verse in the Bhagavad Gita or pick any verse from the Hindu text that you don't like and give it to me.
Yeah, I just posted a bunch of them on my Twitter. So one of them says that you have to. One of them says you have to fight, disbelievers.
Yeah.
I mean, Ram married a kid. So I don't have them all the time, but I tweet them all the time. So every verse, I knew exactly where you're coming from. Bhagavad Gita has jihad.
Just give me one verse. Just give me one verse.
Let me go back in my messages and do this little game right here and whip it up.
But I just want to go into it, and I'll try to answer that. I think John probably misunderstood.
No. I'm gonna.
No, because these Sanghi types that this guy is. This is who I'm trying to fight right now. He hates Muslims, and he thinks that Hinduism doesn't have this bullshit. Hinduism has the worst terrorists today. It's a disgusting book. It's a disgusting religion.
John, hang on. You totally got this
guy. That's fine. No. Let him speak. I'm
going to get the references real quick.
Yeah,
wait,
give it to me.
Wait to the
No. Listen, Harris, I can handle it. I can take care of it.
No, but it's not about that. No, it's not about that because then when it comes from you and it goes back to him, then obviously it just fuels furthermore. But I need to tell.
No. Just give me one verse from it. I'm fine with it. Just give it to me.
Why? No, because I'm not interested in that. This is not about that.
Because if
I have them, they're just buried in my Twitter. I was tweeting this stuff.
I'll tell you what. If he says that I'm gonna have a separate standard for someone else and not for me, then I'm being a hypocrite. I want him to give me a verse, and I'm going to take that verse and say get rid of it. I'm not going to say keep it.
This guy is actually.
That's what Muslims can do. You nut job. That's what the Muslims can do too, not just Hindus. So you can take that Muslims. That's what Shabir Ali does. He just throws them away.
John,
and just because you don't know that tradition is in Islam, and most Salafis don't know that tradition exists, doesn't mean that you have to hold Muslims to a different standard. That tradition exists in every religion. No, so if that's the game you're trying to play, here's the Bhagavad Gita verse about killing disbelievers, I could throw it away. That's the way you interpret these things. Muslims have that tradition, and they need to be equipped to do that. But you only gave them two options, man. You gave them the option to admit their own crap and their filth, whatever, or to leave the religion. And I know exactly where that's coming from. It's that Hindu supremacy, and I hate that shit. I hate that shit.
No, he said something else as well.
No, fine, Harris, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. I'm okay with it.
John is awake now.
Give me the third option. Give me the third option.
Well, it's time for Hindus to start getting the heat because they've been getting away with this shit for too long, and I'm sick of it.
Fine, I can take the heat. Give me the third option.
He's an atheist. He's an atheist. He's not even a Hindu. The third option is
good.
I'm a Hindu. I'm an atheist. I'm an atheist. I'm a Hindu. Give me the verse. I'm gonna say that's if. Yeah.
Right. So I posted some of those verses as well, and this is what I was saying now.
All right, here we go. Let me post this thing here just to shut this guy up real quick. All right, here we go.
Right.
All right, here we go.
But that guy's gonna admit that yes, this is full of shit.
I know. It's just a game because I know the whataboutism game. So I've been doing it for weeks. So yeah, this is Bhagavad Gita 231. Besides, considering your duty as a warrior, you should not waver. Indeed, for a warrior, there is no better engagement than fighting for upholding of righteousness. It's jihad.
Mm-hmm. This is jihad.
So just throw it out.
Yes.
I get it. Throw it out. Okay,
Yes.
You want me to find the pedophilia one too?
No, just throw it out.
That's what I said.
So why can't
That's
you
what
give Muslims that chance? If you started your question with 3 options, I wouldn't have got pissed off. But you gave Muslims
No,
an
he did give.
ultimatum.
No, he did
No,
give
I
that.
said, as far as I see, okay, the why I said this is because Arman Nawabi said, I don't want them to go back to the religion. I want them to leave it. But I would prefer them to go back to their text, see what is objectionable, and remove it. If you want to give a third option, I'm all for it.
No, you didn't say remove it. You said they're going to have to admit the crap and
No,
then
you-
remove it. Go ahead and rewind it
You
back.
have to,
And
if
it's
you
not
have
even
to
about
remove-
removing it, because that's a
No,
lame
listen,
thing,
listen,
because
listen,
removing it
listen.
is not good epistemology. Hinduism has such poor apologetics, because to just say that throw
We
it out
don't
is not.
have apologetics because we're not trying to sell anyone anything. I'm saying if you want to remove crap, you first have to admit it is crap. Or am I wrong about that?
So you're saying Hinduism is crap, basically. That's what you're saying?
If you want to call it crap, I don't have any objection about it.
Do you agree with that?
Right?
So
do
you
you
agree
agree
that
that-
Hinduism is crap?
But do
No,
you
I
agree?
don't.
So that part wasn't crap, but then you would say that is not Hinduism. That is not the Hinduism.
No,
What?
that's his opinion. That's his opinion. I'm fine with opinions. I don't have opinions. I'm saying which is more feasible, because here you have someone, an ex-Muslim like Armin Nawabi, who says that Muslims need to leave Islam altogether. That's what Sam Harris also said. And you have people like Majid Nawaz who said, is it better for 1.8 billion people to apostate, or better for them to reform themselves?
But who are these
No.
people? And all the Muslim haters, they'll go to all. Why are you following all these? Like, who the fuck is Arman Nawabi? Who the fuck are these people? Listen to some Hamza Yusuf. Some people, like, obviously people that hate. Listen to some Abdullah Samir once in a while. They get like a different approach. Like, if your feed is
Why
is
are
full
you
of.
of the
All right,
opinion
I won't
that
say
why are
anything.
you of this assumption that I don't listen to Hamza Yusuf or Abdullah Samir or Abdullah Gondal? I never said I don't listen to
Because
them.
the
I'm
first
just
three
saying,
authorities that you went to where Arman Nawabi said this. Who the fuck is he?
another
Who cares? Like,
No, but then
that's
too much-
why I didn't start with the idea that they should leave. I said if reformation has to come from within, then people have to see or accept that there's some problem within. And the
John,
only
I'm
way-
actually.
no, because you want them to say it's a problem.
I'm actually
That's the
guys,
thing, yeah.
do
hang on,
you
guys,
not see it as a
guys.
problem?
Guys, wait. I'm actually struggling to understand both of you, because I actually don't understand what other options there are. Either you reform Islam, or you stay within Islam, or you leave Islam. So what are the other options? I mean, we obviously understand that none of these things are exclusive. All these things evolve simultaneously. And I've always said that, I would rather have everyone leave Islam and become an atheist, as materialistic, hardcore atheist as I am. But I know that's not a realistic approach. And I would say that, but at the same time, the next best thing would be reformation, because with a reformed or, a modernized, progressive Islam, at least I wouldn't be getting beheaded, or people like me wouldn't be getting beheaded. But the last thing that would be acceptable to me would be leaving the Deobandis and Barelvis and Ahl Hadith and all these guys remain the way they are and keep spouting the nonsense they've been spouting for the last so many years. And you said that it's only a 7-year problem. I'm sorry, it's not really a 7-year problem. I mean, come on, that problem has been there forever.
Look at the Middle East in 1950s.
Yeah,
How
so
it looked. It was a secular area. It was a secular region in the 40s and 50s.
yeah, but wasn't Shah of Iran was supported by the West at that time?
That's a separate thing. I'm saying it was a secular country, and
No,
what turned Iran into a religious country was too much secularism.
Yeah, but there was influence, and that was obviously artificial. So you're going to give me only 30, 40 years of so-called secularism in Middle East, which obviously was going to be overthrown at some point. But now
And the religiosity is a recent thing. It's a very recent thing.
no, really, no.
Theocracy, the theocracy. So
So what?
before 1914, it was the Ottoman Empire. That wasn't a theocratic state. So you guys just have no clue what you're talking about. You're just talking, and this is the problem with ex-Muslims: is they start this shit, and everybody thinks that the ex-Muslims are the authority. But no, all of these answers can be found within the Islamic tradition. And just because you
so let's
guys
go-
and most ex-Muslims don't know about it,
All
and because
right,
you guys get stuck off in your Salafi mosque and stuff, just because you don't know the options doesn't
Right.
mean that you can define reform. Reform is not going to come from you guys. It's not going to come from me. That's why I don't have a channel. It's not going to come from Majid Nawaz. It's going to come from going back to the Islamic tradition. Islam was not the number one empire in the world because it was a poor religion.
Okay, so
It
let
had
me.
these answers. It had these hadiths. The
Hang
method
on.
is there, but Muslims
Haris,
have forgotten it. Muslims
Haris,
have thrown away
let me
their
say
tradition.
something.
Yeah.
Let
I
me
need
say
to let-
something.
I need
Let
to
me
let
say
you-
something.
Hang on a second. Hang on.
John said Islam is not going to come from Majid Nawaz, not from Harris. Islam is to come from Muslims going back to their own tradition. How is it different from what I said?
What did you say? I don't know
I
what you
said
said.
Muslims
this whole
have to
time.
go back to their own traditions, see whatever is objectionable, and then work around it.
So that's
delete
different
it
than
if
going back to
possible.
their traditions. You're putting them. So going back to their traditions is one thing, but then going back to their
Right.
traditions and admitting it's
Yes.
objectionable. No, you just have to admit it's there and reinterpret it.
No,
So
but
you want Muslims to shame themselves. I know the deep psychology of it. I know. You want them to. Everybody wants Islam to be the worst religion, but it's not. No religion is the worst. It's not my person to say that.
I have no
Christians
issues
didn't
with
have to
it.
do this.
I gotta let you go
Jews
now.
didn't have to do this.
So
There's
then
no
I
reason
gotta
that
let you
Muslims should do it just because they blew up a couple towers. Okay.
Okay. So then I gotta let you go because I want to. Now we've got another half an hour. I want to talk a little bit more about the Ottoman Empire. So let's talk about Ottoman Empire. So you say Ottoman Empire was not a theocracy at any level?
No, I said it's not this Islamic State kind of thing that you see in Saudi Arabia, and you guys are trying to say, oh, the Salafi thing has always been in Islam. No, it was not. It was not like a caliphate in terms of the Umayyads and things like that. It was a very loose, very general empire. There were very fiefdoms. There was a Sharif of Mecca. It was a decentralized empire, but it wasn't like this theocratic. It wasn't like a Saudi Arabia en masse. And that's why people think that these are like ancient things.
See, this is where you don't understand. The Saudi Arabia, the concept of Saudi Arabia is actually a 20th century nation state concept. There were no nation states anyway, so they were all empires at any point. So when you go into Abbasid and the Umayyads, when you want to go to those caliphates, of course you're not going to compare that with the 14th century caliphate. Obviously, they had so much of their own evolution in that, but they were still predominantly. No one would say that this was some. How else would you label them if there was no theocracy involved in that? They were grand viziers. There was strong tradition of religious scholarship. There was jurisprudence that was coming from Islamic scholarship. There is a speech of Ataturk who said for 300 years the printing press didn't come to the caliphate because the freaking scholars of the time said that printing press is a work of a devil. You can't print Arabic. If you can't print Arabic, then that would be somehow blasphemy. There were concept of even algebra was labeled as satanic. All these things were coming from the caliph had the ear of, or scholars had the ear of the caliph. So I don't understand. So when you say it's not Saudi Arabia, it was kind of Saudi Arabia on a bigger level. But obviously, as the empire gets bigger and bigger, and when you look at the Roman Empire, obviously the hold of in the Italian peninsula was far more stronger than it was on, let's say, Hispania, or maybe in the east, the Parthians. So obviously Hijaz was actually being held hostage by Suleiman the Magnificent. We have records of that where we had some caliphs who were more progressive than the others. They tried to bring in they tried to introduce music, but then they faced opposition. There was I can't remember. I read this. I can't remember the name of it. There was the Grand Imam of Hijaz. He actually said, because he introduced music in the Ottoman military to boost the morale, because they were getting banged by the Westerners in the 17th century. They said, okay, maybe we need to adopt new levels and let's have some music in that. And the Grand Vizier said that you can actually overthrow the caliphate and we can have because these guys are apostates now. And then he actually gave in. The caliph gave in and he said, yes, okay, that's all. And then music came 100 years later. So this was strong. So I can give you all.
A lot of that happened in the year 1000 after, like in the book Closing of a Muslim Mind, the printing press stuff. And yeah, that was a big one of the earliest hadith scholar was named Ignat Goldziger. He traveled to the Muslim world in like the late 1890s. And he was like, man, nobody writes anything down here because they don't believe in the printing press. Like he said, like, so the mind did get closed after like the year 1000 after. And that's because I keep talking about Ibn Taymiyyah, because what happened is the Greek philosophers got thrown out and they said, oh, the Arab supremacy thing started to come in. We have the Quran, we have the one answer. We don't need printing press. They didn't even use forks and knives in this time. So yeah, that was the down period. But what my only point there is, when the Islamic Empire was great in this golden age that they talk about, the actual golden period was the rationalist period. Now, if the Ottoman was secularist or more theocratic, we could debate that in like history class and things like that. But to say that that is the same style government as Saudi Arabia en masse or Iran, I just think it's not a good comparison, because when you look at the 50s governments of Iraq and all these countries, I mean, the British carved these areas up in 1914. These are like fake countries, you know?
I don't know. So yeah, I mean, you go from Ottoman to Saudi Arabia, and then you show me the oasis in the middle. That's Iraq and Iran and Afghanistan of the 50s and 60s and up to 70s.
Well, not an oasis, but I'm just saying that these things are not as difficult to change as we think, you know.
Basically, you have 50 or 60 years out of 1400 years of secularism to show me. Ottoman Empire, yes, it was
recent history is the most important. I mean, that's what actually matters, you know. That's what actually matters is what is.
But Ottoman Empire, you cannot compare that with anything else. Yes, I would give you that okay. So was you, yeah, and you can argue that okay, in the West as well, there was a Holy Roman Empire as well. So fair enough. All the scholars, even Islamic scholars, agreed that the reason why Ottoman Empire, the Islamic world could not catch up to the Industrial Revolution was because they did not modernize themselves, and for attitudes like
literalism,
Arabic cannot be printed. So who else is there to be blamed for religion? It's the religion that is to be blamed. So I don't know if you're going to go nitty-gritty and you compare that to Saudi Arabia. And obviously, I can tell you Saudi Arabia and Pakistan are very different as well, but they're both pathetic when it comes to religion.
Yeah,
there is no free thought there. There's no evolution of ideas. One of the founding fathers of Pakistan, Allama Iqbal, actually somebody quoted me one, and he's the most revered guy. And they say he actually said that free thinking is a work of a devil. So that's what we're dealing with. And then, you know, and I think in terms of Sudhindra, what his argument was quite, these are the only three options. You stay in Islam the way it is, you either reform it, you leave it. And I reckon leaving it is from one end.
Yeah, but that's a good, if you said that, I wouldn't have got mad. That's a good thing. But if you say reform it, but reform involves just like admitting that your religion is bad, and so I just think that's something that does. That's like white people kneeling, you know, the Nancy Pelosi with the scarf kneeling and stuff. Like the shame thing is cool. You don't need to shame the religion. You could say, all right, you could say question, because then you're making a moral judgment, and then you can get yourself stuck in what about it. So yeah, reform the religion, whatever that even means. You know, Islam is probably the most difficult religion to reform, and that's why I didn't want to make a YouTube channel or anything about it, because my voice is probably a minutia of 1%. I mean, no, I don't know anyone, but in a time in Islamic period, most Muslims would have thought like me, and that's what blows my mind. They would have, and if you had the Abbasid Empire in the year 1890, it would be totally different. So the closing of the Muslim mind came when the literalism came. It's not the religion. I don't think it's the religion at all. I think Islam as a religion is begging for proof. It tells you proof, find the proof or get the fuck out of here. You know, it's the Quran said, but when it turned into literalism, it got destroyed, and it comes right with Ibn Taymiyyah, 1300s, right into. I mean, it's a direct path to this. And the closing of the Muslim mind is a whole book about this. It charts the whole thing. How does the greatest empire, one of the greatest empire in world's history, just become one of the most pathetic, backward regions? I mean, it's weird. But I'm not going to presume to make grand judgments, because that's the problem that's happening in a lot of regions right now in America, in the subcontinent, is we're using history to make arguments today, and that's a dangerous thing. Whereas right now,
that's what happens throughout, but that's what has happened throughout human history. I mean, the ideas were in at some point. We go from Mesopotamians, we go from Indians to Chinese to Egyptians to Romans and the Greeks, and they ruled their part of the world at that time. But then they got outdated, and so did Islam. Islam was a very powerful idea. As soon as Muhammad died and all the first 4 caliphs, they were literalists. They were freaking beheading people. And then they were actually more changing. This is the most interesting part that I say, a vagabond, like a thug like Omar, when he went to Persia, he included Zoroastrians in the dhimmis. When the Quran is quite clear about dhimmis just being the people of book, Jews and Christians, and Muslims rule. But then he went to Persia and was like, oh, shit, there's so many Zoroastrians. I'm gonna have to behead pretty much everyone. So he included that. And that's when the Muslims went to India as well, that okay, they beheaded so many people, but then again, what do we do? So they reformed. So that is the reform that we're talking about, even though they're being forced by the circumstances to reform. So now what you say that, and I'm not taking it personally, that when you say, who the hell?
That's a huge statement. That's not, so what, see, this
but that did happen. But that did happen.
Shit, yeah. So, I mean, it did. If you believe a certain tradition, so you could take it several ways. It did happen if you believe in this fucked up hadith tradition. But if you think like me, you don't even have to worry about these stories. So if you believe that tradition. Number 2, it's a big jump to say that a decision that Omar made or any of these caliphs made as a leader means it came from Islam or it's because of Islam. Now, it's recorded, but to say that they're following the literal truth, I don't know about that. And then the next thing is that we know these things weren't even written down in this. There was no written Quran during this time. There was no hadiths. They didn't even know it was religion. They used to have warriors in the Islamic army that when they retired, they went to get their pension. And they said, hey, you coming for prayer? The guy said, no, I'm a Christian. I forget the guy's name. It said, you're a Christian. I said, no, we're not going to give you, because they didn't know I had to convert to. So this was not and this is what Fred Donner talks about in his work, is that it was a believers movement. This was not a religious empire in the beginning. Now, if you believe in hadith and the majority Islamic opinion, yeah, that's going to be bullshit. If you read Bukhari and Sirah, yeah, these guys beheaded people and Muhammad did this and that's what fucked me up. Like in my Islamic journey, I said, whew, I mean, this is a big deal. I mean, so it's fucked up. But just to say that the decision that Omar made in dealing with a barbaric Arab empire, having to behead rebels, I don't think he would do that because of Islam. And like smite the heads in the Quran, yeah, it's recording history and things like that. But, again, it's just woo-woo, man. It's just, I'm the guy that comes in and does the woo-woo. So most Muslims don't think this. And even Ali Dawa, what he's talking about literalism. He's got a nice Western shirt on. He's sitting on his couch. He's saying that apostates get their head cut. So, and all the young kids, you see these young Salafi trolls online, like 16 years old, 15 years, they're all fucking, what do they say, simping for ISIS and this stuff there. Everybody believes in literalism now, but, I don't think it's going to change.
That's the rational approach.
It is. Yep.
If I'm writing a book, I would want people to first understand what it's literally saying. I don't want them to go, no, but this Harris actually meant that or that. And then people are discussing my book when I'm long dead. Well, not that people will, but I'm just saying, let's just say that happens. Like, why? Like, why don't you just listen to what he actually says? And yes, my book will be irrelevant in maybe 50 years' time or maybe 100 years' time. Probably 50 years' time will be more irrelevant than anything, because the ideas would have evolved. But just read it at that time and say, yes, Harris was a product of the early 21st century and, he's obsolete now. But the problem with that is there's forced reformation even by Muslims. The whole scholarly debate on fiqh and everything. Quran doesn't say anything about so many things. Quran doesn't even say literally when it talks about what are the kind of girls you can divorce, even the girls who haven't menstruated yet. It doesn't say you can marry little girls, but it just sounds like a passing remark. But then there's a whole fiqh. The hundreds of scholars are actually telling you that you can actually do that. You can marry them and blah,
that's
blah, blah.
That's the fucked up part.
But that's my point. My point is that this is when you have foundation as bullshittery as Islam or any other religion, and this is why we are so aggressive towards religions, then of course you're going to build you've gone into these unnecessary studies of science of hadith, and this must have meant that, this must have meant that. This is why I never buy the argument of, look, I mean, you're interpreting that way, it could have been that, you're going too literally into that. Literal meaning is the first and foremost step of reading anything. That's what I would say. But then when we go into it might have meant that, I think that's just the way.
That's again another atheist like defining, the gulp of just defining the epistemology, and that's not how the earliest Muslims thought about the Quran, and that's the whole thing. So when the Catholic Church evolved into this crazy thing that they were asking people to pay to forgive their sins, and Martin Luther came around to reform Christianity. So he reformed it by going back to the text, right? He reformed it by literally going back to the text, and that's what you're saying. So that's the argument, is that to reform the religion, you're going to go back to the text. So if a Muslim reforms their religion and goes back to the text, that's going to make it even worse, right? So the whole idea is that to have Islamic reform is going to be difficult. And I'm coming up with a concept in my head, but to make it trickle down to all the villages in the Punjab, I think it's going to take hundreds of years. These weird ideas and the stuff I talk about, you hear from like Khalil Andani or these PhDs in Harvard or stuff like that. But you're right. People study the science of hadith. They get caught up in this hadith, and the text exists. And you said this earlier in the stream, and I wrote it down because it's a really good point. And this is why terrorism, ISIS groups are never going to go away. They're always going to come up every 4 or 5 years somehow, because why? Because the text exists. And that's a big problem. The fact that a text exists that someone can refer back to is a big deal. So my whole idea, I got a little emotional with the last guest, Ms. Salvador, which was a lot of fun. My whole point of that rant is that the Islamic reform is going to have to be a unique thing. It's going to have to be that every lay Muslim in the mosque is going to have to know something about hadith science. That seems to be the only way, because Shabir Ali has a method to say, I'm going to throw away the 9-year-old Aisha. He doesn't just say it because he doesn't like it. There is an Islamic tradition that says, and Jonathan Brown talks about this in his hadith book, is if a hadith disagrees with the morals of the time, you could throw it out. And this is a tradition. So it's like Islam is going to have its own form of reformation, but the fact that all these books exist and you go to the mosque and there's all these books and literalism is hard to beat. And it's taken Christianity many years to beat literalism. Like when I grew up, the Christians were like winning elections and gay marriage and stem cells were the big issues. And it was a voting, but Christianity has been liberal. But the thing about it, the New Testament itself is such a generic book. The New Testament, Christianity doesn't have bookshelves and bookshelves of material. So Islam has a huge mountain to pass. And myself, I just thought it was better to leave. So maybe I'm defeating my own argument. Maybe as a better Muslim, I would have stayed and tried to reform. But I thought it was easy to just leave.
But I think you're misunderstanding. And again, we understand that there will always be room for reform, but why reform has struggled, especially in the 20th and 21st century, maybe for such a very long period of time. Interpretations have evolved. Different scholars have come through the ages and they've given their own interpretations. But there hasn't been a major reform where, just pull out, where there are some scholars now, like, for example, I don't know if you've heard of Javed Ghamdi or not. And you said that because text remains, that's why people like ISIS will always be coming. And that's a hard part. But the biggest part that you're not understanding is probably because you're a white convert.
Yeah. It's what it is. It's a totally different.
Is the fact that when you say that, there is a tradition of leaving out verses and leaving out hadiths that are not relevant to the time, that would have been such a fringe belief or fringe tradition that it just does. The moment to that average guy that you're talking about in the village, if you told him the Prophet Muhammad once said that eat from the right hand, they'd be like, yay! The whole village will be eating with the right hand. So they act, and as I said,
but that's not how all Muslims were. That's how they've been for the past 1,000 years.
No, they're not because of ignorance. But that's why I said, if you actually told them, I see that in the news every day, how these uneducated, illiterate Maulvis, they gather these hundreds of thousands of people and they tell them that this is what it is. And they take, okay, because there's a strong culture of literalism within Islam. It's not just Salafi. You talk about Salafis as it's like 1%. But even Deobandis and Barelvis, even if you look at Barelvis as well, whatever their interpretation that Babas have given them, Baba Barelvi has given them, they take that interpretation literally. For example, Prophet Muhammad wakes up every night along with all his wives in the grave. That's what Barelvis believe. They literally believe that. So my point is, literalism would always be there because if I make a statement to you as well, your first and foremost thing would be literalism. But unless you go into this, Harris, what do you mean by color? I'm like, certain wavelengths coming out of a certain object. That would be a color. Yeah, but how is it entering your eye? I just don't understand this. And maybe this is probably the reason. It's a legitimate
discussion. I mean, we can't just people have that discussion. I mean, look at critical race. Critical race theory is all about just wasting time arguing about words that we know the definition of. I mean, there's a literal tradition in every school, in every religion. Every religion has, but why are we going to tell Muslims that they're not allowed to have an aesthetic spiritual tradition when that is that the evidence is that that's the most successful empire came through interpreting the verses that way. So what's wrong with telling Muslims to go back to their roots and be a little more loose, to tell Muslims to read the Bible?
Revivalism never works.
Yeah. Well, it's not going to work, but I'm talking about just fairy tale white, convert stuff. And that's why I come in as a guest, and I feel bad because there's probably people in the Arab world that are sitting there, their dad's telling them they got to marry tomorrow, and they're getting oppressed by actual strict Islam. And I feel bad because I'm in a fairy tale world. But when I say Salafi, people criticize. When I say Salafi, I mean Salafi. I mean the specific doctrine of Salafism, which is this idea of not having your ijaz and not having a chain, of just kind of being a guy that tells everyone else they're wrong because you have this wisdom. Yeah, every tradition thinks they have Ahlul Sunnah. Every tradition thinks they're going back literally. But the point is there's always going to be a literal tradition, but there's always going to be a spiritual tradition, and there's an ebb and flow. And I guess, Islam, the modern Islam, is loving the literalism, and I think you're right, because it's very easy to understand. It's very easy to whip up the low information voter, the low education voter, or the citizen. So yeah, it's a lot of the conversation we have now. Maybe if we have it in 100 years, it's still going to sound like a fringe conversation. But
I want you to unleash on this Hindu folks now, because this guy deserves it. He says Vedic religion was once across the globe. Many shivlings were found in Europe, Middle East, and Southeast Asia. What about, were they found in Australia and North and South America as well? Maybe they were found in Mars as well.
Here's what Vedic religion is.
Maybe scientists are discovering that on the surface of Pluto.
Actually, I was told the other day that I'm a true Hindu because I'm a skeptic. So I'm the real Hindu. I'm a real Hindu. So here's what Vedic religion is. A Vedic religion, here's my neighbor's pencil. My neighbor worships this pencil. I'm going to come over because I'm rich and upper class, and I'm going to say, give me this pencil. Fuck you. Go clean my feet. And this is now an avatar of my god. That's what a Vedic religion is. Look at what Hinduism did to the Jain monks. It's Brahmanism. They come in and they appropriate other gods. You know what they say an avatar is? An avatar used to be a local god. But these Brahmins came in and just impaled and forced people to convert and said, this god is now an avatar of my god. I'm the Brahmin. I have the secret wisdom. You serve me. Fucking crazy. And the colonialists came in and they say, here's a book. A book has history. Oh, and they ate it up. So this idea of this united India is such a fluke. This idea of a Vedic religion, it's ahistorical. There's no Vedic religion. There's no Hinduism. It's Buddhism. It's Buddhism. How many Buddhists did the Hindus have to kill in order to make up this religion? So no, there was no Vedic religion across the globe because there ain't no such thing as a Vedic religion. Oh, there is theft across the world. So I guess in that case, if you want to say Vedic religion equals theft, then yes, Vedic religion did influence the whole world because Vedic religion is just stealing good ideas.
Harris Sultan, can you prove Ayers Rock isn't a shivling? Can you prove Ayers Rock is not a giant tumor on someone's bum?
Yeah, whenever people do these whataboutisms now, I just say, can you prove to me that I'm not a tomato? That's usually how I'm doing on Twitter right now.
You actually tried that on me. You said, can you prove that we're awake or not? Oh, no, we're conscious or not. What did you say? You used something. But anyway,
I used gravity a couple times. Times.
Now, before that, you did that as well. But anyway.
The simulation theory.
No, but it didn't work. It didn't work. I think that was woo.
I didn't think I was going to be prepared for a debate. This is fun, man. Yeah, this is.
No,
fun.
we had fun. I think it was very.
Well, here's the thing. For the theology, I'm very woo woo, but when it comes to text and history, I'm pretty
That's how you should be.
Yeah,
that's how you should be in theology.
Well, it's like, what's the point, man? I mean, that's what that's for me.
That's what I said. This is what I said. So let's go out with one agreement.
Yeah.
On this,
I'm willing to learn.
So either there is this man in the sky or force and whatever, the one conscious being. This is what I focus, and he is an interventionist. Or the other one is he's not interventionist. So interventionist, I don't know if it'll take us somewhere else now. But interventionist, we can pretty much tell that interventionist one with the religion one, the God of religion, doesn't make sense. But then but it doesn't disprove the other God. But then I'm saying that's an irrelevant God. But do you agree on that? That God would be irrelevant because it doesn't care. It doesn't care whether I'm gay or not, or I take poop on something or not. So that's irrelevant. The conversation is irrelevant. It's like having discussions, you and me killing each other, or having a very meaningful debate that on so and so planet there are pink elephants or something. Just
Well, that's what Ben Franklin would say. He said, I only have one life. I don't want to waste time thinking about God in a way that so he was just a deist. He kind of had that say, it was like, I'm not going to waste time. And when the Sufis say the beloved, they're not saying, no Sufi text ever talks about God. They're going to talk about the divine. They're going to talk about
they're not Muslims.
The beloved. Yeah, they're not. And when Muslims try to say Sufis is tasawwuf and they were just Muslims that they just want to claim the cool ideology. Yeah. But no, it's a good point, man. You're starting to sell me on it a little bit. I just feel that the new atheists just spent so much time on the theology that they sacrifice the beauty of the science, is that people need something else positive. Right now, the kids are going towards spirituality. They're going towards woo-woo. And I don't want people to go towards woo-woo because they'll end up an idiot like me. I want people to go towards science, but I'm already 4 decades in.
I agree.
I'm already 4 decades in. I want my teenage, and I like Generation Z. I really do, because they're really cool with like trans. They're really cool with a lot of stuff that I grew up like saying, whoa, like gay. Like my brother being gay was really weird for my family. But this new generation is like, it's really cool. So I want this new generation to just love science and not worry about what happens when they die after. But I've grown up with this stuff, so it's hard for me to just adopt science. But I have lived through the new atheists, and I just feel that focusing on theology and the existence of God was almost a missed, what was it, like 10 years of this stuff. But it's just my opinion.
Yeah, well, it's a bad opinion because, as I said, there's so many religions, and if religions were like very limited to academic circles, where some archaeologists is just discovering, back in Mesopotamia, that's what they used to believe in, and then you'd be fair enough, Harris. What the hell are you doing? Talking about religion 24/7. What's wrong with you, bro? Get a life, find a girlfriend or something, But religions are very dominant in our lives. I think it's worth talking about it because that would literally have impact. And as you said, there are literally the people being persecuted, and not only just persecution by beheading, but also, marry this person, eat this food, you can't go out. It's bad, man. So I think I say there's no noble cause worthier of debunking religions than in today's age. I genuinely believe. And Deborah said Harris Sultan has a tad more resentment. I don't know. I don't have resentment. I've just become this. I've just become this chronic rationalist. That if it doesn't make sense, I just want to yell, and I want to say, "Why? Listen, look."
That's why you're the number one channel, man. That's the.
I don't think I'm a number one.
That's the argument that works.
Yeah, but anyway, well, look, I mean, I'm so glad that we finally got. Yeah, I know. We finally. I was going to keep it to 2 hours, but then you just went off on that poor Indian dude. So, you can use that, but you picked the wrong guy, though. That guy is actually an atheist. He tells me, he gives me Harris. Look what Gita says. Gita is so bad. He says, Harris, Gita is so bad. He actually debunks Hinduism to me.
No, but the reason why I went there is because there is a mindset, and I don't want to come off.
He doesn't have that.
It's going to come off racial, but Americans have a mindset too. We're very arrogant people. We're fat. I mean, you could talk about stereotypes like that. Yeah, we're dumb. So I'll say that Americans are dumb. All stuff. We're confused. There you go. All right, we're fucking assholes. We bomb countries. All right, so we'll say that. But I think there's a complex dynamic in the subcontinent that I'll never understand. So I'll give you that. Yeah. I'll never understand.
No, you are there. You are there. Yeah, you are there. You actually do understand. You do understand the dynamics. It's very bizarre. People can say that it's like North and South Korea. You can say North and South Korea, same people, but just different ideologies. They have communism and democracy, but here is just religion. But then people. But the worst part here is that at least North and South Koreans own Korea, but in Pakistan they own. We have propaganda channels that we are somehow Turks or Arabs, and then we name our missiles that were used against the invaders who came and killed our ancestors. But again, I know it's more complex than that. I don't buy the whole Indian narrative in that either, but I'm just saying that it's just bizarre, the whole dynamics. It's so bizarre. And then on the other hand, Indians have this obsession with revivalism, as you said, that why can't Muslims go back to the golden era, and then think about it from that point of view. I hate revivalism. I hate tribalism. I hate nationalism. And then I see that with these Hindu nationalists. They're like, we have a history that's 3,000 years old.
The worst.
We conquered this. We had this, and we discovered this. And it's like, bro, get out of here. Look to the future. And but these people don't buy that. And people, I uploaded a video where they said cow urine, this Bollywood actor drinking cow urine, and I got 45% dislikes. I can't even talk about that now. Don't go screw yourself. But anyway, I got to wrap it up now.
Yeah, I just feel like it was coming from a
I think you got him wrong. No, you got him wrong. I think
like
you had a
whites
strong
used
feeling.
to think. It's like a white guy asking a black person to admit like fatherhood stuff. It's just like it's a point, but it's just coming from the wrong place. That's how I came from it. Like I could sit there and tell the African American community to admit to crime rates and admit to fatherhood, but it's like where is that coming from? There's obviously more of a complicated issue here. There's a reason why Muslims have been violent. So I just felt personally, so forgive me if I I felt it was coming from that position.
I think it did, because you did think, because the way we've been hounded by some of the Sanghi guys and some of the Hindu nationalists for the last, I don't know, ever since the Kali Mat thing happened. It's easy to unleash on them, but there are a lot of Indians. We got to remember that they are, like, and I thrive on their support. I mean, I don't want the Sanghis. You know how hard I go on Twitter, but that's just, but that was the wrong guy. That guy I highlighted before, the one who says shivlings is found in other parts of Europe and everything. Those are the guys you got to go after. But anyway, we got to wrap it up with this funny comment from Potato Fries, $2. Some Hindus random rock found at Mars, shivling confirmed, which is exactly right. Anyway, guys, that's it for today. Didn't plan to go for 3 hours. Thanks for sticking by. And John, as I said, do follow him on his YouTube channel or his Twitter. As you can see, Delvento Time. Subscribe to his YouTube channel. Just put in, dude, you got to get a name for your channel.
Well, it's not 30 days. I just started it last week, so you got to wait 30 days to get my personal YouTube. But for my music is separate. But I just started the discussion YouTube, and I don't talk any woo woo on any of that. We talk hard data. I don't do woo woo. I don't have time for that. So the House of Delvento, we don't even have an actual link yet.
Right. So we'll get that. Do subscribe, and until next time.